Well, here we are. This is the next installment of our crazy Audiophile show. Louie, how are you, brother?
Man, I am doing. It's Saturday for me,
Yeah.
mate, and it's late.
Mate,
It's Sunday morning for you, so it's the last
welcome.
day of your weekend. But I
That's
still
right.
have another full day to look forward to tomorrow, mate.
Yeah, I'm already there, brother. I'm into the future. So
You are into the future. You know, when Y2K was a big deal, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, is the world going to end? Are planes going to drop from the sky?" I got to be honest with you. The very first thing I did is I looked at Australia and said, "Did hell on earth hit Australia?" Because I need to know now. Because I got a couple hours to figure crap out if all hell on earth hit Australia first. And guess what? Nothing happened. Your plane stayed in the air. Everybody was okay. Bank transactions still went through. I'm like, we're going to be fine.
We're all still here. We are all still here. And we were the first to still be here. So don't worry about that.
Exactly. Oh, man. I'm so glad to have everyone here for the Audiophile Show, Shane. Look at this. We got early risers, man. Look at this. John. Hello, John. We got even Mitch
John's
in
here.
the corner. Mitch, he was a guest on our show before.
Mitch.
Robert saying hello. We got
Hi, Rob.
Tina. I don't know who this person is.
Who the heck is that? That maybe somebody I know quite well, but I'm not sure.
Mr. Charles. Charles, thank you so much for being
here. Charles is here.
When are we going to Denver, Colorado, Shane? We need to do a live in Denver, Colorado. I wonder if we know anybody out there that can.
Well, we might. I wonder if he's got a spare room we can crash in or something while we have a look around the mountain state.
Listen, man, Shane, I know that you've never been to Denver, Colorado, but I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun. They have a great downtown community. I got to make sure I look up because I'm looking at the chat, text, everything. I'm Mr. Producer of the show, guys, so I'm sorry if I'm not always looking in the camera. But listen, we got Mr. John. See, if I'm not looking at the camera, then I could say, hey, John, good morning to you guys as well. Appreciate you, John, dialing in. But Denver is a great place, man, and they have some good record and analog stuff out in Denver. I think you'd really enjoy it, Shane. You need to make a trip.
I'm very keen, and I'm sure at some point in the not too distant future, I will be on your shores over there in the United States of America.
Oh man, I can't believe they're going to let you in.
Well, they may not. I mean, that's why I say hopefully. Hopefully I'll be there, but I can't guarantee anything. You know, Mr. Trump might say no, back to Australia.
I can't quote Charles here, but I'll just leave that in the chat for a moment. So guys, appreciate y'all jumping in early. We're going to start addressing questions as the channel, the viewers build. But today we are going to be answering your questions. We actually have a bunch of questions already been submitted to us ahead of time via Shane and I's comments and chats when we announced this show. So we are going to be starting probably out with those as the questions in the audience build. But if you have questions, hold on, let me get the right. Here we go. This is live, guys. Let me get the
live. Look at television.
Ask questions in the chat. Ask your questions in the chat so we can address them in real time. This is Ask the Audiophile, and hopefully we can answer your questions. I'm not saying they're going to be the answers you want, but we are going to at least try to answer the question that you provide. And if you stay tuned to the end of this show, we have a very special announcement because we have an amazing guest. It's going to be on the next Audiophile show that we're going to share near the end of today's program. So kind of encourage you to stay tuned so you get a sneak peek, but this is a big deal. At least I think it's a big deal. What do you think, Shane?
I think it is, man. I really do. We're this show is building momentum now, and we're finding that we are actually being contacted by people that want to appear on our show. So
they must be drunk on a weekend. I don't know.
I don't know. They must be drunk. I don't know what the heck's going on, but you know, we must be doing something right, you know, because people are tuning in, and look at that. It's even 1 a.m. where John is, and he's still listening with us.
My goal, John, is keep you entertained for the next 60 minutes while this show is live. That is my whole point of this show is to keep you entertained, John. I hope you text us at the end and say, I'm still awake, because then we know we succeed. That's my whole goal.
Yeah, well, we hope to keep everybody entertained, and we want to talk about things that you guys are asking us, in fact. So that's what this is about. And we'll do these from time to time, Louie, when we build up questions so that we can literally address them right here on the channel, and the people that ask them can tune in and actually see us give you your answer. Well, maybe not the answer you want, as we said. The one thing about Louie and me is that we shoot from the hip. We tell it as it is. We're not paid by anybody. We don't have any affiliations. We just tell you what we find, and that's what we do.
It's funny you mention it, Shane, because I literally was in a. Oh, all right. Do we want to start here? Because we were talking about hey, let's talk about.
I don't know where we're starting, but let's start here.
Yeah, let's dive in here for a moment. So I'm on a very popular Discord channel that has a lot of people, and I've been watching this general chat. They have all these different rooms. I don't know if you're familiar with Discord, but they have all these different rooms in there, different channels as they call them, and they have different topics, right? And this one is specific around audio and specific around vinyl. And so they're talking about, like, you can go latest pressings, you can go talk about, the Rhino hi-fis, you could talk about mo-fi, you could talk about hip hop, rap, jazz, whatever, right? And it's a very busy channel. But in a general chat, they were talking about YouTubers and audiophiles. First off, I learned the general community hates us. By the way, they hate audiophiles and hate YouTubers.
Oh no!
They hate us.
I'm mortally wounded to hear that.
I'm watching. I'm like, y'all are talking about me, aren't you? That's like I
guilty conscience, mate. What's going on there?
I took shit personal. But I tell you what, though, one of the reasons why there's such a negative connotation to YouTubers is because when I was watching the comments, this is not me, guys. This is what people were talking about in this Discord channel with like I don't know. They're probably close to 1,000 people in there. Is that because all of them are trying to sell you shit? At the end of the day, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to push, I get free records. So let me tell you about the records that I just got for free and tell you about them. I get hardware. I sell this stuff. Or I represent this brand. Or I represent this cable. Or I represent this speaker. Or I represent this amp. I'm going to tell you how amazing it is. And that's funny enough. That's why most people just don't like these channels, is because they feel like they're sleazy salespeople, that they won't talk about any other product but what they sell. And I had a come to Jesus moment for myself. I'm like, first off,
praise the Lord.
I feel like you and I are pretty transparent on this stuff. You and I have actually we've actually got people who won't deal with us anymore because we reviewed their product negatively, and they're like, "F you, we're not dealing with you anymore." But I hope anyway.
Can I say this quickly? I'll say this quickly while butting, because it's right in my head and I'll forget it otherwise. This is the issue that we have, guys. That for us to be transparent and for us to really tell you the truth about how we find things. Now, this is a subjective hobby, right? So everyone's going to hear things different. This ear to brain connection is different in all of us. But there are certain things that generally people that listen to music, that appreciate good hi-fi, appreciate in a system with its coherency, with its sense of realism. All of those things are things that are common threads amongst all of us. So there is similarities as much as there are differences, and it's great that we've got differences. But when we're talking about the things that we think we're pretty sure you guys are going to want to hear about, for us to tell the truth and like completely no holds barred tell you the truth, we're thinking in the back of our head, we're probably not getting anything else from this distributor. We're probably not, if we didn't like it, we're probably not getting anything else from the manufacturer, because we've always got this threat hanging over us to try and be good citizens on this YouTube sphere, to try and be good audio journalists. What we need to do, what we want to do, is bring you the facts and nothing but our version of the facts. And if it resonates with you, and over time it may well resonate with you, then you tend to go, all right, well, I'm going to believe what Louie says, or I'm going to believe what Shane says on that. And I'll never tell you to go out and buy anything. And I know Louie won't either. What we will tell you to do is go, well, we think this is something you should have a listen to. And that's the difference.
Yeah. I'm
not being paid by anybody to do this. I mean, mate, I put 35 odd hours a week in this, as well as everything else that I'm doing, for about and I'll be, look, total transparency here, for about $150 Australian, which is our funny money, about 150 Australian dollars a month. That's it. That's all this work. So if I work that out, it's something like about $2 an hour for the amount of, not even, probably even less than that. So look, we don't do this. We're not doing this because we're going to get rich anytime soon, because it isn't going to happen. We do this. Both Lou and I do this, and we're great mates. We've really become very, very close friends now over our collaboration and the time that we've spent together. And every Wednesday we are on the phone with each other, on WhatsApp, video chatting with each other, talking about content, what we're going to bring to you guys in this show, what we're going to do. We support each other's channels. That's what you do in a community. That's what we want to show you guys that we're serious about doing. But the money's not the motivation. The motivation for doing this is to hopefully help you guys so that you don't make some of the mistakes that Louie and I have made over the years, when we didn't have that YouTube like we all do now, to be able to look at these things and make some evaluations around what somebody who we trust is saying to us. Now, I'm not asking you to trust me, and I'm not asking you to trust Louie. I've got to do the reverse. But all
this way.
Yeah. All we can do is we can just get our, as we say in Australia, because we play cricket, is get the runs on the board. All we need to do is show you over time that what we're telling you is what we believe in, and that it's our own unbiased, honest opinion. And then it's up to you to either agree with us. If you resonate with us, then go out and have a listen to it. If you don't, well, that's cool too. We're all here to learn.
Yeah, that's it, man. And I got to be honest, like, I don't blame the people who really peddle and push their products on YouTube, because quite frankly, a YouTube channel takes a lot of work. It's a lot of hours, Shane. I don't know how much time you spend. I know I spend a lot of time on building a YouTube channel, and it doesn't pay anything. So the only way that people who really want to focus on building some sort of income from YouTube, the only way you could do it is by peddling products, by selling things, by looking for sponsorships, by getting people to talk about. So I get it. I understand. I just wish it comes with more transparency. I wish that's my thing. Just because you don't represent said brand doesn't mean that the alternative is junk. No. Just because you didn't get said album sent to you, or because your record store, because I'm a big vinyl guy, right? Just because your record store can't carry X record doesn't mean that the alternative is junk, right? Like, just be transparent. Like, hey, that's a great album, but this is the one I sell, and you could buy this, and it's a fraction of the cost. Okay, fine. It's not a one-step pressing for $150. You have a $30 pressing that you can sell. Great. Just be honest about it. If it's this cable is what you can sell, you sell this whatever cable, but you hate AudioQuest because you don't have a contract with them, then don't say AudioQuest is junk. Just say I don't represent them. I sell this other brand. Like, just be transparent, in what you do. Not everything is crap, I guess is where I'm getting at.
No. In fact, you know what? Most things aren't crap. Most things in this industry these days, with the quality that we're producing, even with the cheaper end of the industry, is not rubbish. It is. I mean, if I look at where we've come in a manufacturing sense, and in the quality of the products over, let's say the last 10, 15 years, the bar continues to be lifted. Every year I see better things coming out for either equal money or cheaper. And that is fantastic for all of us. It really is. And this is what I'm talking about. It really comes down to, if you, like you said, be transparent. Trust that people aren't going to just unsubscribe because you say, I've got to deal with these people if that ever happens for us. So I like this cable. The reason I'm selling this cable, if it's a cable, is because I trust it. I trust in the way it was built. I believe in it. I think it sounds great in my system. And I'll leave it up to you to decide whether that's right for you or not. And if you say that, what's wrong with that?
Yeah. And if I ever get to a stage in my life, Shane, where I'm representing products that I'm going to sell, I would only sell the stuff that I really believe in anyway.
Of course.
Which I think is what a lot of these people in the community do. So I'm not knocking that. It's just that they're not necessarily transparent the
Correct.
reason why all the other things suck is because they don't sell it, right? Like,
Absolutely. That's the
I don't
problem.
mean to bang on about this, you know,
No.
but
But it's a good talking point. It's a good topic while we get things built up in the
Well,
on
we
the
get
channel.
some questions. Do you want to start tackling some of the questions, Shane?
Let's go, brother. Let's get into it.
We got one right from John asking about room treatment and how to deal with reflections. And I feel like they're calling you out with the big window. I might, I don't know, but you do have a big window behind you, Shane. So maybe you want to start that one off.
Okay, so there's a couple of things to talk about here in relation to room acoustics. Sometimes having a window behind you when you have a fairly well damped room gives you that little bit, especially if it's close to where my seated position is, as it is with in my system. I've got two options. One, I've got a very heavy acoustic curtains that I can close, and when I'm ever doing any absolute critical listening about and reviewing products, I always close the curtains, and I have a fairly flat response in that room when the curtains are shut. Now, there is a difference when I open the curtains. I've measured it. There is definitely a difference. But you know what? Here's where the whole subjectivity of this hobby comes in. I actually like the window being open.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yep, I like the sound profile I get. It just gives me that little bit more sparkle at the top that I really enjoy. And because I'm so close to it, it's not a reflection that is outside of an area where I can perceive it. So I just enjoy what I'm hearing with those curtains open and that natural light coming in. But when I'm actually critically listening, I get my room as flat as I can get it so that I'm actually hearing right into what the piece of equipment's doing in my reference system. And that's another quick point to make too. A reference system is paramount. You have to be able to have something that you can rely on being 100%. So you know what that sounds like.
Means is a baseline.
That's right. You've got to have a baseline so that when you this is reviewer talk coming in here now. So that when you so Mitch will be listening to this, so that when you change something in your system, you can discern what that change is. That's you know what it is in your head. You know what you've done, but I don't. That doesn't stop with me. I throw that out the window. I need to hear what it's done so that I can then talk to my subscribers, our community here, about what I'm hearing that has changed, because that's the valuable stuff. It's all well and good to go, oh, well, it's got to be different because I changed something. No, it doesn't. It might not be, but a good system will tell you the truth. Yeah, and I've built my system around it telling me the truth. I mean, I can change a cable in my system, and my wife's got fantastic hearing.
Oh, right? Cables don't matter, Shane.
No, of course they don't. But yet, because they don't matter, my wife's in the kitchen and she'll walk past the listening room and go, "You've done something." And I go, "Yeah, I have. What do you think I've done?" And she goes, "I don't know." She doesn't know what it is, but she can hear something has changed. My system makes it easy to review. It really does. It tells me exactly what's changed, and she knows my system as well as I do.
Yeah, so I also have a window in my room, right? But it's not behind me. Yours is behind you, behind your chair. Mine's actually in the front of the system. So it's a little bit different situation. I'm dealing with different acoustic challenges with it being behind. But I also have acoustic treatment, like the curtains are acoustic curtains, and it makes a huge difference when they're shut. Now, I personally like it shut more than I like it open. I can hear the difference. I don't like when they're open. I like when they're open during the day because it brings natural light into the room. That's how I feel getting. I want to say vitamin D, but you're really not getting vitamin D coming in here. But this room is dark. This is not only the acoustic curtains, but they're also blackout curtains. So when they're shut, there's no light that enters this room. But it does make a huge difference. So John's saying this is the same guy asked a question. He says he has big bay windows, and then he tried to glue foam, and the panels were black. Big mistake. He said actually heat cracked the windows. I gotta say I've seen people try to put like foam and dampening and stuff on their windows. In my opinion, and I don't know how you feel about this, Shane, because we never really talked about this between you and I, even though we both have windows. I feel like the acoustic curtains does enough of what I need to be done. I don't feel like I need to treat the windows any more than just having proper acoustic curtains. What's your thoughts on that?
This is where it also gets into subjectivity around this hobby, because everybody's going to hear things differently. And look, we can go for a measured flat response in a room. Okay, we can go for that. But will that be what you like?
Yeah, no, maybe not.
Right?
Right.
It may not be.
Right. Because when you think about live music in general, which is what a lot of people try to aspire to have in their rooms, is not there's reflections, there's other things going on in the room. If you think about a concert, you have slapback that comes back. If you think about a recording studio, same thing, right? Like, yeah, they're acoustically treated and everything, but there's some sort of if it wasn't there, you went and pick it up in the pressings in the audio chain, right? Sometimes there's a little bit of an echo, there's a little bit of a reverb in there. And if you kill that completely, sometimes I think what you miss is you lose the musicality of the music. You lose the emotion. You might get the detail, but I think you lose the emotion of what sounds real in the music, right? So I think not having the perfect room is actually in many cases better. I think I can get into I don't want to get into a whole analog thing, but Shane and we talked about this recently about why maybe vinyl people say sounds better than digital, even though there's all these high-end digital stuff, right? It's all the flaws. It's the mechanical vibration. It's the distortion. It's all the things, because we're used to hearing that stuff in real life. We're not used to the perfect, crisp, clean, sterile sound. So when we hear that, it seems unnatural. And if your room is designed and your system's designed to be 100% sterile, where everything's 100% crisp and clean, and there's no reverb or anything, it just seems weird. It just gives you for me, it just gives a different impression.
Yeah, well, we can control things exceptionally well. In fact, in a tracking room, in a recording studio, we can literally,
Yes.
we can actually dial out a good studio. We'll just literally be able to dial out everything that is uncontrollable. But in saying that as well, what we also do when we're recording stuff is we put effects mics right up in the corner of the tracking room, so that we pick that first and second order harmonic up,
right,
which is that sense of realism in the instrument. Because there is the attack, which is the hitting of the note. There is the sustain, which is what's happening when the note is played on an instrument. So the body of the instrument resonating, the sound coming out of the instrument. And then we have the decay. And the decay is usually the second and third order harmonic. They are the things that give that realism to music that we perceive, we know. Because when you listen to live music, and this is something else that's a massive bugbear for me, is we've got all these audiophiles out there, and hardly any of sorry, let me rephrase that. There are so many people out there that don't regularly go and listen to live unamplified music.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, where is your reference?
Where's the baseline?
That's the reference. Your reference is listening to an instrument being played without any amplification being added in any way.
Yeah.
Because we do that at the end when we reproduce it, right? So what we want to be able to do to get that reference that we talked about is we want to be able to say, right, I know what a 9-foot grand Steinway sounds like, and I can pick one of those a mile away because I know exactly what they sound like when I hear one. And I know what that live sound is, and then I'm looking at what the engineer's done to capture that sound to see how good they've actually done at trying to be able to make a reproduction of that instrument faithful to how it sounds when you listen to it live. That is your reference, ladies and gentlemen. That is a mic drop moment, walk away. That's what we're looking for. That's what, as far as I'm concerned anyway, that's what creates what we call a great audio system. That ability to be able to, and that doesn't just come down to the audio system, of course. It comes a lot of that comes down to the engineer, and the people that are literally creating this capture that we're playing back.
Yeah. And I know we need to move on because other questions are building in the chat, but
we just talk too much, you and me.
Yeah, I want to add to that just slightly, right? So I think a good reference system also is something that has consistency over time, because when you're doing comparison, especially in music, it might be 2-3 years until a reissue or a repress or a remaster comes out. And now you're going to go compare something that maybe you're familiar with a long time ago, or maybe you recorded a long time ago and you want to go back and compare. And And you know, I think it's important to make sure that there's some sort of consistency in the system, and you document the changes that you're doing. So when you go back and listen to a new track or a remaster of a track, that you know that, oh, okay, this is not necessarily inherited in the music, or you're going to go play that music again. But what drives me crazy is the people who don't take the time to do that. They're like, oh, I reviewed this album 5 years ago, and this is what I remember. Well, your system probably changed 5 years ago, or your room has probably
And your
changed.
ability to remember
Your
something
ability,
has
right? You're going
changed.
by your notes, what I get, right? Because you don't want to spend a
Yeah.
46 minutes or 48 minutes to go listen to the track again. I understand it's a lot of work to go back to that, especially when you've already reviewed that album and you already listened to it. But the other thing too is like a lot of these folks, they use like tube equipment and stuff, which changes over time. Not using the whole reason I run solid state is to build a consistent reference system. What you and I talked about, right? Is that's the reason I actually like tubes. I like the sound of tubes, but
So
they're
do
not
I.
consistent over time. The sound changes, adapts. It
Yep.
depends what tubes you have. It depends what you're doing, right? So those things change over time. So you don't have really a consistent variable to go by, right?
And
You have other
tube
things that are
rolling.
influencing the things that sound.
Yeah. And
But I
tube
would tell
rolling
you,
also changes your reference. I
right?
mean, if you've got a tube-based amplifier, you're keen to tube roll.
You
And the
right.
moment you do that, you change your reference. If
You
that,
change your reference, right? Exactly.
so you're lost.
So you know, going back to the heart of the question, I'm not terribly a fan, and there's several of them out there. In fact, I just heard one that has a massive channel say this recently in a live show. Um, I'm not a terrible fan of people who say room acoustic doesn't matter. Room treatment doesn't matter. Don't treat your room. I'm not a fan of that at all. I think you need to treat your room. I think you need to address the issues in your room. I think get something like Rue or something to measure your room. Try to fix the room as best as you can. Spend some time with it. I think to me, room treatment is like the second best upgrade you can give your system. The first best upgrade is isolation. Get your devices isolated. Get something that can decouple your equipment from whatever rack or stand or shelf, whatever you're using. That to me is the first thing, especially your speakers. If you could decouple your speakers from the floor, that's the biggest upgrade you can give your system. I would recommend that, especially if you have a modest system. I recommend that before you replace any other device. And then room treatment to me is number two. I don't know how you feel about that, Shane, but that's the biggest advice I give to people when they're like, hey, what upgrade should I get? Well, first off, did you isolate your devices? No. Did you do room treatment? No. Well, do those things first, because you already invested a lot of money, a lot of good money into your equipment. And I don't feel like you're hearing it. You're probably not hearing the money that you invested. You got to do those things first.
Well, so when I'm working with clients in relation to room setup, room acoustics, stuff like that, getting their rooms right, I'm going to differ from you slightly here, and that's cool. I'm going to say that once I know what's in the room, so I'll talk to a client about what gear have you got. Once I know what gear they've got, then I can start to understand where I need to focus first. So if there's no room treatment in the room, they've got mid-fi or even better, decent quality equipment,
right?
And they're not isolating anything, and they haven't thought too much about room setup, then I start putting things in order. Now, I bang on about this on my channel all the time, and my subscribers will know this, and soon Louie's will as well, because I keep on going on about it. The room is the body of the instrument to which we listen to everything that comes out of that system.
Yeah, it's a component.
Why does a Stradivarius sound like it does? Because of the timber that made the body of the instrument the way it sounds.
Yeah.
It's just a violin. It's like any other violin as far as the way it looks and its shape, but the maker wanted a specific sound. So what did the maker do? He arranged the timber that created the body of the instrument in such a way that it produced the sound that he wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies in a room. We are exciting that room with air pressure. If that room is going to have spurious vibrations and reflections and it's not going to deal with that, with the air in it being excited the way that it will when we're playing our audio is just not going to sound any good. So for me, once I know we've got a decent system in that room, then the very first thing I'm talking about getting right in there is system setup.
Yeah,
Getting that system set up correctly in the room is absolutely, the amount of people I helped at the Melbourne HiFi show this year that were set up on the wrong wall.
Yeah.
And I would walk into a
I
room
would
and go,
agree with you.
nah, you got to, it needs to be this way. It needs to be that way. I need 2 minutes in a room listening to a system and I can pretty much work it out straight away what's wrong, if there's something wrong. And then I've got a pretty good idea about how to fix it. And I haven't got superpowers. It's just, I've done it so many times. You get to know where things sound the best in a room, a certain size room. So that's it. Room setup first, room treatment second for me. So that's dealing with the bass in the room specifically, and then dealing with reflections in the room and also putting diffusion in the room, because what diffusion will do is it just folds the walls back. The walls just disappear. I haven't got a big room, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you, my room is quite small by probably audiophile standards, and I've got a lot of equipment in that room. But every single person that walks in that room so far has turned around and said to me, the walls, the boundaries, and Charles can probably even chime in on this because he was very recently in my room, and the walls disappear. The size of the room is defied by what you're hearing in that room. And that's not by accident. That happens by treating bass, treating first points of reflection, diffusion in the room in front of the rear wall, behind the speakers, getting that ability to scatter the sound pressure that's moving around in that room and delay it from getting to your ears, so you hear the fundamental, you hear what the speakers are telling you first. Everything else after a certain amount of time, our brain chucks out.
Yeah,
it just goes, no, it's a reflection, it's an echo, it's something, I don't need to listen to that, I'm concentrating on the actual music. So there's my order. That's how I would generally treat a room and the system. Bay windows, getting back to the question, bay windows can be a little bit difficult because they sort of go bang and then like that. So what happens in a bay window is you get all this propagation that happens on very hard surfaces. So what that will give you in a room is a bright, harsh, over analytical sound. I will answer that by simply saying this, mate. You nailed it on the head, and I do the same thing. Good, thick, double blockout. Even if you don't get acoustic curtains, if you get good, thick blackout curtains, they generally work quite well to stop that impregnation of that sound through the curtain and into the glass and back out. Yeah. And you've got a gap of air in there between the glass and the curtain. And obviously that will slow that signal from coming back at you, and then your brain chucks it out.
Yep. I agree. I think the acoustic curtains might be just a fix, the remedy for John. I agree. Shane, we have other questions building, but it sounds like you and I flippy flop step 2. So yes, I think we both would agree that setup is key. I think when we flip flop is I like to make sure all the devices are isolated before we start dealing with room treatment. It sounds like you like room treatment before isolation, but I think we're all on the same thing. Yeah, they're very similar. They're very similar, but I think sometimes I think room treatment is a little bit beyond most people's capabilities to truly understand how to do that and how to measure that and fix it the right way. So I
can tell you very quickly. Really quickly, bass propagates in corners.
No.
Okay, everybody? Bass propagates in corners, and on 3-axis corners, so roof, floor, and where the walls join is where bass propagates. It's where it amplifies and balloons and gets carried away.
That's the biggest thing you can fix.
Put bass trapping in the corners of your room. First thing you do, trap the corners of your room, get something in there that will, a diaphragmatic bass trap with a heavy membrane behind a absorber in a typical bass trap works very, very well at slowing down that and absorbing and turning that energy into heat, as opposed to propagating it and all coming back out. And the first thing you'll notice when you get that right is you'll start hearing more things that were always there in the soundstage. A veil, and I know it's an overused term, but it's very true here. A veil is lifted, and you hear more of the detail. You get more articulation across the sound stage when that bloom, that bass is not masking all the micro detail. So first thing I would do is treat the corners of the room with bass traps. The next thing you do, and then I'll stop talking about this, is you get a mirror. Get your wife, get a friend, whatever the case may be. Sit yourself down in the listening position once you think you've got the speakers in the right position and you're happy with how they are, and get that person to run that mirror across the wall along the edges of your room and while you're standing there, you'll do one side at a time. And when you see the tweeter or the mid-range speaker of your speaker through that mirror, put a piece of masking tape on the wall or wherever you are. Do the same on the other side. That is your first point of reflection. It's the simplest way to do it. So what you do then is you put some absorption or some diffusion at that point, and that will slow those first points of reflection to get into your ears, and then your brain will throw it out. Yeah. So they're the first two absolute key factors. We go into a lot more detail when I work with clients about getting a room 100% right, but they are the two first points that really, really make the biggest difference in your room. And that's it.
Yeah, Shane, thank you for giving some tips on that. And we've done, I think, 2 different videos already on room acoustics. One, we had the folks over at SAC Audio join us. We also had Norman from AV Room Service come on. So if y'all really want to learn more about room acoustics, go back and check out those earlier episodes because we dive deep into the subject of room treatment. So great. With 36 minutes, one question. We're doing fantastic on the timing, Shane. we have a whole bunch of questions that built up in the chat. Plus, we had to.
I promise I'll be quicker.
Who pinged us ahead of time and said, "Hey, can you answer this one?" But here was the second question that came in. It was about amps, speaker switches. It can accommodate more than 2 amps. This guy's got 7 vintage integrated receivers and amps, and have a couple of 2 amp 2 speaker switchers, which is limiting. Man, this is a solid question here. I'm gonna kick this over to you, Shane. This one's a little bit beyond.
You might do that.
Okay, hang on. Let me just the equipment master. You know,
need to understand that question again. Hang on. Recommended. It to me straight away. This sounds like there's just too much in the signal path.
Now, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there seems like there's a heck of a lot going on there. Accommodate more than 2 amps.
A couple 2 speakers, which is
7 vintage integrated receivers.
What are you doing with 7 amps in your system? That's the question of the day. I mean,
look, we want to take these questions really seriously, and we are, of course, we are.
But understand what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I agree, mate. To me, there's far too much in the signal path there, and you're not going to be able to. Well, anything can become a reference when you get used to it, but if you change anything in that system, you are not going to know what worked with what. The synergy is going to be all over the place with a system like that. Now, I know there are people out there that maybe have a 3 or a 4-way speaker system, and they will individually amp each speaker. Now, that's fine. That's fine.
But it doesn't seem like that's what Hectori is trying to do. It seems like he's looking for different signal paths. Hectori, maybe you can give us a little bit more detail on what you're trying to accomplish, mate, and then we can maybe answer that, because I'm really confused too on what you're trying to accomplish. Are you really trying?
I'm getting. Yeah, I'm just
trying to get 7 different signals from your rig.
Yeah, a lot of stuff in the signal path that I think is just a big hot mess.
Yeah, hopefully Hectori will go ahead and dive on it. We got this one from a different John. This is John Rosh. He's asking about AI. Do we think AI has basically a future in high-end audio equipment? As somebody who lives in the bleeding edge of technology, I've been in tech for over 25 years. I think we haven't even started to think about AI in music today. And I mean that wholeheartedly, because when I see AI, especially like agentic AI and quantum AI and all those things that are happening in the enterprise world for data and statistics and everything else. And y'all are probably familiar with things like Perplexity and ChatGPT, et cetera. And now we're starting to get AI engines, and like Spotify and other people are starting to come out with their own AI-based engines. But I think there's a way that AI can also help actually increase the sound of the music that we're getting. So we're doing AI in a sense of like, okay, let me say this. I'm going to get some haters on this, especially for me being Mr. Analog guy. But we're using AI, I think, in the wrong ways. We're using AI to build playlists, but AI can also repair and fix things. And I think that if we can use AI to clean up old pressings, music from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and bring them into what would sound like a modern recording, I think that would be a wonderful use of AI, especially because those recordings were never good to begin with. They were never great, right? Everybody's raving right now about James Brown's Sex Machine that MoFi did. This shit is distorted as hell because funk music didn't care about sound quality. They cared
Yeah.
about energy. So when even you listen to that record on MoFi, it's distorted as hell. James Brown is constantly clipping his microphone. Is there a way that we can use AI to come up with a pressing on this that actually sounds great, to be able to go beyond the data that was clipped and complete that signal chain, so we can, even though it's artificial, but we can hear James Brown in his entirety? I would love to hear these recordings that have been recorded clip or not so great. What's it? Carol, what's her face? With Tapestry, Carol King. Tapestry
Yep.
is
Yeah.
another record that was never recorded right. And I think if we used AI to clean it up, it'd be fantastic. I mean, think about this. And you might say, oh, now you're talking about digitizing, master recordings, blah, blah, blah. Shit, that's what they did with the Beatles reissue, right? Now and then, they used AI to complete and make that song sound something like that was recorded today. What I'm saying is these iconic albums, these treasure albums, if we can use AI to repair sort of the damaged audio that's on the original master tape, I think it would be great. Whether that's eventually released to high res audio or it's released pressed, digital to analog and pressed to a record, I don't really care. I would just love to hear some of these classic albums as they actually were if you were there live. And I hate that sometimes recording or recording choices during that live session or in the studio took away from being able to really capture that moment because of budgets, because of bad mastering decisions, because of whatever. I think AI can bring a whole new wealth. What I'm not a fan of is AI creating music. What I'm not a fan of is AI being the band that you're listening to, being creating, producing, coming out with new albums. That I'm not a fan of. And what I'm really worried about is people using AI to basically have a band and then maybe singing over that or whatever, or us getting harder and harder to determine what is a real band versus what is an AI generated band. That's the stuff that I'm concerned about because I want to listen to real music, right? I want to hear real bands, real artists. I want to hear real inspiration. I don't want somebody who's a keyboard warrior saying, hey, give me a country folk song that sounds a little bit bluesy, that resembles Chris Stapleton with a little bit of Joni Mitchell, blah, 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 blah. And I'll put this song and it's going to do the singing and music. That's not what I want. But what I would love to do is say, okay, here's some great records, live shows, etc., that were recorded that weren't really recorded well. Can we use AI to make them sound better? And I think we can. We just haven't really got there yet. We're not using AI, except for the Beatles songs. The Beatles song is the only one I know that we've done that with so far. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love for people to comment below if there's been other songs that we use AI to clean up, but that's the only one I know of so far.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a purist in that regard. I hear what you're saying, and I absolutely totally agree with you on AI creating music. That is not what music was and should be, and I hope will never be. But I fear it will be. Is what music does to a human being's emotions comes from the human experience.
Yes.
So it is an artist who's singing about a period in their life, a thought, a something that's come into their head. And why we resonate with that is because we're just like them in so many ways. We're 73% water. We're all got DNA. We're all squishy, and we, cut ourselves like I did yesterday, and all of that stuff. All of that stuff is part of the human experience.
That's right.
It's part of the thing that makes us all the same. And so what music does is I can talk for me here, is that I play music that makes me cry when I hear something that sparks an emotion in me. It reminds me of a time, and music is amazing at taking you back in time. It reminds you of a time and a place in your life where you were, and it brings all that back to you. It's almost like time travel for me. And And if some computer, if something is creating something, there's no human element there. There's no emotion to that music as far as I'm concerned, because already in my head, I know this is not a human being that made
there's
this.
no person, there's no emotion. What are you going to connect with, right? Some
Yep.
computer that generate. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Like that Johnny Cash thing that was, you know, with the AI voice thing. That was, you know, those tracks that were done. I can't remember the name. It was Ghost something or other, I think it was called. And like I listened to that, and sure, it sounds amazing, right? On my system, it sounds like wow, but I'm disengaged immediately because that's not him. I know that's not him. So you know, it just loses its credibility for me.
I agree.
And the other thing about restoring stuff is it's that's a slippery slope. And while I take your point, mate, I really do. I don't think AI is at a point yet where it can do that seamlessly enough that when I start noticing something not right, then it gets back to credibility again. Say I've heard that poor recording, right? That's a moment locked in time for all kinds of reasons. Yes, some of them are bad mastering decisions.
Yes.
Some of them are like the James Brown thing is just the way he was all about the energy in the performance.
Clipping mics. The instruments and him were clipping mics because they didn't care. They wanted the energy, not necessarily an audiophile pressing.
Absolutely. And in that instance, that's the authenticity in that recording. And that to me is, I think, will always be, and I say this, you know, being careful, will always be the most important thing to me. Now, would I like to hear it cleaned up so that it isn't doing that? Well, there is a part of me, I'm a sound engineer. There's a part of me that absolutely would love to be able to fix that, right? But I wouldn't want to lose what it was either, because
I'm not saying throw out the original
thing.
I'm not saying throw out the originals, but Shane, if you haven't listened to Sex Machine in a while from James Brown, it's a hard listen because it is constantly clipping. And if you have a very sensitive system like you and I both do, it actually becomes very fatiguing listen to that record because it clips all the time. It is not an enjoyable listening, but the music is great. His performance is wonderful. My God, the energy that James Brown brings to that album or to that recording is phenomenal. His backup band is phenomenal. The musicians are phenomenal, but they're clipping like crazy, and it just makes it a very difficult listen. I would love to listen to that recording in a way that I can sit through both sides of a record. And I feel like I can't do that really on today. But we have a lot of questions, Shane. But I do agree with you. I never want to destroy the artist's original intent. And sometimes, especially in like punk and certain things, they want the clipping. That's part of the experience.
Part of the thing.
And I would never want to take away from that. I'm just saying there's times where I wish we can clean things up. The Carole King Tapestry album, I would love to hear in high fidelity. I think that's a beautifully put together album that just unfortunately was recorded in poor conditions. And you really don't have, there's not one great copy of that record. But I would love for something like AI to clean that up in a way that we could hear it. I'll still keep my OG. I would never get rid of my OG. I would just love to be able to hear that record a little bit better. That's just me. That's personal preference.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Nick is asking about upgrades on Spotify and alternative streamers in general. I got to be honest with you. I use Spotify for like BS. I'm not really up to date on what update Spotify is doing. I do know that they've been talking about coming out with more of a high-res service. I haven't seen it happen yet, but they've been talking about that for years to kind of compete with Apple primarily with their lossless plan. As somebody who, you know, has I hesitate saying this, Shane, because I know that you trump me on this, but I would love to say that has a high-end DAC and a nice digital system. I think Qobuz and Tidal are pretty much the way that I stream because of the different, you know, PCM and DSD options. I don't think they have DSD, but the different quality streaming options that you can get from those things, you know, using Rune. Is where I'm at, and Spotify just quite frankly doesn't work with Room. But that's why I listen to pretty much all day. I don't know if you have an opinion on this, Shane, but I'm not terribly a Spotify fan. I don't really know what's going on.
I have Spotify and I use it to find music essentially. What I love about Yeah, what I love about Spotify is its algorithm. It actually has a fantastic way of understanding what you like very quickly, and it can suggest that stuff to you. The other thing I like about Spotify is its vast library of music. Just about everything's on Spotify. That cannot be said for Tidal and Qobuz. As much as their libraries are expanding, of course, but they're all the time. But I have Qobuz, and that's what I use when I'm actually really listening in digital. But I do find a place for Spotify in my life. I have it on my phone. Sometimes I'm sitting here working, doing other things outside of my YouTube channel. I'm also in the middle of a psychology degree at the moment, but while I'm working, I'll be, for instance, having that on in the background, and it's Spotify that I just let it run, and I go, oh,
background music,
and I'll go, oh, I like that, and bang, I'll go on to another great bit of technology is Shazam. I use Shazam a lot, and then I'll go, oh, right, and I'll Shazam that, and then it stacks up in a library, and then I go back into my room at some point and go, right, what have I like at the HiFi show? I was walking in Shazamming so many songs at the HiFi show. They went, oh, I don't mind. I want to have a listen to that in my system.
That's smart, actually. Because I just asked, I'm like, what song is this? I should probably just Shazam it.
Yeah, I just shut up and go bang and let my phone, and then it just tells me exactly what it is, and it logs it in a library. I come home and I go, right, now it sounded like that here, and I'll make a bit of a note of what I heard, and then I'll listen to it at home in my system and go, yeah, okay, right, well, chalk one up for me, or whatever the case may be, and I do that a bit, playing a bit of games in my own head about that kind of thing. But so Spotify is definitely a tool I use. There is a lot of talk that imminently now the upgrade is coming for Spotify so that it is lossless. I read a little bit about that only recently, that and it's being pushed out to subscribers of Spotify that it's coming. So I mean, I know they've been talking about this for a while, but I think that I think we're going to start to see something pretty soon.
But you'll need wide adoption for it, right? So there's there's streamers that support Spotify.
Yep.
I primarily use Rune for my streaming, and this is just a personal preference, right? I just like Rune because it puts everything together, plus my own personal library, and it's easy to navigate, and any device. It's a consistent experience. I think the challenge that Spotify is going to have is getting that adoption into hi-fi systems, right? Because the moment you're Bluetoothing, you're already at a loss, right? It doesn't matter. You're already losing because of the Bluetooth signal quality. And it doesn't matter what version of Bluetooth you're running. You're still having some sort of degradation. It's got to get integrated. See, the thing is, it's like even Apple lossless is not, unless I'm mistaken here, but it's not in Rune. I don't remember ever that being an option. It's like a couple European things that I don't have the ability to have an account for, and then it's Qobuz and Tidal, right? So that's why I use Qobuz and Tidal. But you're right. When I travel and whatever, or even in my car, like Spotify, like that's what I use, because it's easy to stream, and they're lightweight and they're not high res. So the streaming goes by smoothly, and I can stream it with low cell signal. But I don't know.
And it gives you an understanding. You can still hear what you can hear. And honestly, look, I've got a Lumen U1X1 streamer that does support Rune, that does support Spotify, and I can play Spotify through that. And I'll tell you, on a good system, I think John Darko makes a good point about this too, where Johnny says that that how much do we really need high-end, like high quality streaming, when what's happening on Spotify on a good system is pretty close. And do you know what? I agree with him. I think that I put that Lumen back in my system, and I play that through my system, and I go, yes, I know it is. I can hear more. And I can hear more openness. I can hear more depth, more detail in a lossless stream, for sure. Yeah. And this will be a controversial thing, because everybody go, well, it's not lossless, and it's lossy, and it can't be as good. Well, I'm not saying it's as good, but I'm saying that it's not as bad as a lot of people say it is.
Yeah.
It is really pretty close.
Yeah. But most people aren't listening to, I mean, maybe people are watching this stream are listening to really high-end DACs, but most people are, when they're on Spotify, they're on wireless earbuds.
That's right.
And I don't think the high quality, high res is going to make a
Doesn't
difference.
matter.
High quality. You need something like these, right? Like this is the Focal Bathies, right?
Yep.
This has the onboard DAC that you can plug in, that all of a sudden you get the high quality. Because otherwise,
Yeah.
if you're using a Bluetooth, you ain't gonna hear it, right? It's not gonna make a difference. So anyway,
but a lot of people just want to listen to music. You know, they don't want to. They don't want to do what we're doing. So and be right into the.
Who are those people? Why are they here?
They should be slapped about the face vigorously.
No,
yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that's all good. But what I understand is that there's a place for all of it.
Right. Well, we're way back on the questions right now, Shane. So we got to start doing some rapid fire stuff here. Charles got a Wilson question for you. I don't have Wilson, so I need to defer this one to you.
Okay.
So Wilsons have issues with many tube amplifiers. Any experience on your side? I don't know if you've done a lot.
Yep. The reason with Wilsons, they can at times produce a fairly difficult load for a tube amplifier to be able to deal with. My Alexias at 96 hertz dip down to about 1.6 ohms. And what happens in music is that when something is measured and it says on the back of the label on the speaker it's 4 ohms or it's 8 ohms, it's not. Here's the news flash, folks. It isn't anything like that. That is the average across the audible frequency spectrum that we listen through. But depending on what frequencies are being produced, the load is always changing. It's always going up and down and all around the place. So what we do is we look at what Wilson give you the specs on what the worst it gets down to is. And then, and it's generally set up as a 4 ohm speaker. So tube amplifiers, and what this comes down to is the more difficult the load for that the amplifier sees, the more current the amplifier has to be able to produce.
Right.
And that happens through capacitance and that. So all these capacitors that we have in our amplifiers are like a petrol tank. To make this a bit simpler to understand. So, in an amplifier like my Vitus's, that's got a very big long range fuel tank in it. So there's a lot of stored energy in the capacitors in those monoblock amplifiers to be able to deal with difficult loads. So bass takes energy, and then when we get down to lower frequencies, sometimes we see quite a difficult load in where what's happening in what the speaker is showing the amplifier. So with that, this is really basic. I'm oversimplifying this, but it makes sense that if you've got a tube amplifier, generally they do not have a lot of ability to store energy to have that instant power when it's needed. And when a speaker dips down to 1.6 ohms, then what generally happens is, because the amplifier can't produce the current that is needed at that, the volume drops because the amplifier just cannot produce a consistent level across what you're listening to. So Charles makes a point that, and that's not just Wilson's. There are a lot of speakers out there. The majority of speakers out there, in fact, produce decent hi-fi type big loudspeakers, get down to difficult loads to drive for an amplifier. So solid state amplifiers often have the edge there. We're talking about high efficiency speakers. Wilsons tend to be more on the high efficiency side. My speakers are 91 or 92 dB at 1 watt 1 meter. So that's fairly good. Mm-hmm. So but when we get into speakers that are highly efficient, like 98, 100, 102 dB, those speakers generally don't have issues with a dip in their ability to be able to, or they show the amplifier in where the ohmage is set, so, or where it's moving around. So Therefore, a tube amplifier can drive that speaker at a constant level without you hearing the life being sucked out of the amplifier. So, yes, it can be an issue, and it depends again on how loud you listen as well, and all these sorts of things. Obviously, the higher you push the volume up, the more you're asking the amplifier to do. And when the load drops down to 1.6 ohms or 2 ohms or something, a tube type amplifier just is going to run out of puff. And that's what you hear that by essentially a dip in sound pressure. So a dip in volume, and you go, oh, that dropped a bit, and then it comes back and it's moving around. You're not touching the volume. It almost seems like you're moving the volume around when you get into those difficult areas. So it is a valid point, Charles. That's why I've got Vitus monoblocks driving my Wilson Alexias, because I don't have that problem. And again, the moral of this story is system synergy. Once you get the right components driving the right components, you think about everything from source through to preamplification, through to amplification, and then out to the speakers. You need to think about the whole signal path. And if you get that side of it worked out, then you don't have these problems.
Yeah, well said, Shane. System synergy is the tip of the day for sure. Hey, I'm going to fire through some of the comments here, Shane. I don't think we need to comment on all of these here, but let's just see what the people are up to. John, who asked about the bay window thing, said his windows are up front. I think that the curtains are going to do that fine. Charles recommended that even curtains on the ceiling can help. I think ceiling treatment is something that people sometimes overlook because it just looks ugly and nasty and people just don't do it. Mitch is verifying that, hey, closing closet doors, things like that help, which I agree. Let's see, what else we got here? People are saying that, here's John. I think this is the same John saying about live bands. I think this is when we're talking about live music. We have Hattori mentioned about artists attend from studio mix. He doesn't like when this is like the artist mix, which is fine. I'm looking to see if we have a question in here. We have people playing music. Charles mentions a good thing here about hand clap. I do got to say this is an important way to test a room. To see what you're listening for is the echo.
Slap echo. Yeah.
That's the echo. What should we be listening for, Shane? What tells you when there's a good room that's acoustically treated when you clap your hand?
Well, I'll tell you, if I could unplug my microphone and my thing, I would walk this laptop up into my room. Do you know what? No, I don't think I can do it.
Well,
I was going to say,
I have an acoustically treated room. Trying.
Yeah. So where I am at the moment is down in the back of my house, and what you can't see that way is huge windows. The whole 6 meter length of this room is windows. So this room still isn't too bad.
It's not too bad, but I can hear the.
I've got a Rode microphone here that I'm using to
can hear the reflections.
Hear me, but if we were the great experiment. Oh, gee, I wish I could do this. You know what? This is live television. Let's see what happens here. I'm going to unplug the power here, but I'm going to grab my microphone. Oh my God, here we go. And I am going to walk you guys up.
Oh no, we're taking the tour. This is a tour through Shane's house.
Now we're in a bit of a dark area here. Wait on. It's going to be difficult, but with light and stuff. But so we are in my hallway, which is directly out the front of my listening room. I'm going to keep talking, and I'm going to walk into my treated listening room. Hopefully, you guys can hear what is a dramatic difference when you actually walk into this room if you're in the room. So I've got a decent microphone here. So I'll keep talking, and I will walk into this room. Are you going to sing for us, mate? And I am in this room now. Now, I'm not sure if you guys heard the difference there. This is, here we go. You can see my system here.
Yeah.
This is my room. And if I walk back out of this room and go back into the hallway, there is quite a distinctive difference in the sound versus going back into this room again, where all of a sudden I sound present and I'm in a correctly treated room.
You're snapping the focus.
Yeah. So that's the difference coming back out into the hallway again. And then you can distinctly, hopefully, hear that my voice changes. And then we'll head back down here where we were. And that is live television for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get the make sure that.
So you hear that with the clap too, right? So it's hard sometimes to hear when you're talking, because your ears and your mouth at the same time, because you can hear your inner voice, as I call it. But the clap, allows you to hear that in real time. You can clap outside a room and inside a room, and you can hear what Shane just demonstrated for us on camera.
So I think the thing to understand here is that the frequency that we clap at dissipates very quickly, and it'll go out and hit the walls or the boundaries of the room, the roof, the floor, all the 6 surfaces of the room. It'll come back to you. So a live room, you're going to hear that clap sound like a bit of a high-pitched click back, back to you. It comes back at you. You really notice it. In a room like if I wasn't holding the microphone in one hand and the laptop in the other hand, you would, and I could clap in my room. And we can set that up someday, and I'll do that in the room to show you guys. But it is a very neutral sound. You hear the clap, but that's all you hear. It's not an anechoic chamber, but it is a nice. I've got a really good frequency response in that room.
I love how this is the 3rd episode to tend to turn into room treatment for some reason. And we actually have The Freight, which is a Boston-based rock band that kind of has a classic 70s, 80s rock vibe, popping in and saying stack audio for the win. Yes, stack audio really does make a difference. We have a great question here, Shane. If I want the best quality sound but don't necessarily have the money for a reference system, is there a way to achieve that level of quality with a nice pair of headphones?
Okay,
that's tough, right?
I had some issues with headphones, and please, all you HiFi guys, don't kill me now. But I just have never been sold on the spatial awareness of what headphones can do. I can hear a center image with good quality headphones. Don't get me wrong. And I mean, I lived in headphones when I was a sound engineer, so I've got some really good quality headphones.
Yep.
But do you know what? I've got really good quality Stax headphones. I've got really good Stax headphones, and I've got Focals. I've got a lot of really nice headphones, Sennheisers. I've got some really good headphones. Yeah. But
I have Sennheisers.
Don't listen to them unless I'm editing. If I'm editing something and I really need to listen into something, or I don't want to disturb my wife, then of course I will put the headphones on. I've also got in-ear headphones. I've got all kinds of things. But I just don't get the layering. I don't get the spatial cues, the envelopment that my system gives me. And I've tried the best of the best headphones, and they still don't come close to what I can get in my room with the space between me and the point where the sound's coming from.
I would concur with that, Shane. I think
sorry, don't kill me.
The other challenge with headphones, and I know there's some technology that's not as often used, but it is available. I'm not going to say what I'm about to complain about isn't available, but I will say it's not widely adopted, so I'm going to complain about it. The challenge too is, like with headphones, if you turn left or right, the sound stays with you, right? So you really don't have that realism of being in a live band, which is what we try to replicate in our listening rooms, is that ability of if you're at a concert and a band's playing dead in front of you and you turn your head, now it's hitting this ear, it's not necessarily hitting this ear, right? So you lose this what I call 3-dimension of sound when you go to headphones, because no matter where you are, the music is equal level in your ears all the time, no matter how you move your head. And for me personally, that creates like imaging issues for me, right? It's just, I don't know, like I look around and I'm like, I'm constantly hearing things in the same place no matter where I look. That, I don't know, it just messes with my brain. But I will bring this up. To get to a reference system, and it depends what you mean by reference system, right? So reference system is really just a standard you can go by so you can hear audible changes, right? So reference system, let's set the definition. Reference system doesn't mean you have $100,000+ system. A reference
doesn't mean you've got a great system either.
It could be a lot more modest about that. It's a reference to you. It's what you're used to. It's your reference of what music should sound like. So if you do make a change, or if you listen to, for me in the analog world, if you listen to different albums, you can hear the difference of the pressing, the mastering, etc. That's a reference system. It doesn't need to be a very expensive system. It can be a modest system. It could be a mid-fi system, right? That's your reference system. That's your reference. It's your reference to the music. So let's make sure we're clear on that, right? Just reference system doesn't mean high price tag. I know the hi-fi world loves to say, hey, we have a reference system or a reference amplifier or a reference speaker, and it costs a house to go buy. But headphones can get you a great audible experience. I think what you would want to look for on a headphone is one that has a DAC, especially if you're connecting it to, like, if most of the way you're streaming music is through your phone or something like that, get a headphone that has a built-in DAC that you're going to connect via cord and not use Bluetooth.
Yeah.
I think those things are going to get you relatively close for a few $100 or $1,000 or whatever. It's going to be a lot different than having to buy an amp and speakers, etc. And I know some people, because of their space, or maybe they have studio, or they live in a city like New York City where you get like an 8 square meter room and you pay $3,000 a month for this closet. You're not going to be able to put a stereo system in there. Headphones are a wonderful alternative and a very good way to get into high audio. But get one that has a DAC, and then do yourself a favor and make sure that the music you're streaming is high res as well. Meaning that you're not doing that and then going to listen to like Spotify or something like that, because then you're not taking advantage of what you just invested your money in, right? Go get Qobuz or Tidal or something like that and make sure that that's what you're using as your source. And if you primarily use, so I use headphones pretty much when I travel. So downloading the songs in high res are really important, and make sure you choose the settings in your app to do that. Otherwise, you're just getting like an MP3 version, which means you're not taking advantage of that high fidelity headphone that you have. Any closing thoughts on that, Shane, as we move forward?
Yeah, I think you're right, mate. I don't get me wrong. I'm not dismissing headphones, because I mean, look, you know, I use them a lot as well. But I use them for a specific reason. There are definitely situations where that is the only option that's available to people for the reasons you brilliantly articulated there, mate. Like, you're in an apartment. We're all living in closer spaces now with, you know, medium and high density living. It's the way of the future. Like, we can't all be in a house like, you know, like we're in, where you've got, you know, a space around you and you can go to another room and you're not going to disturb anybody, or you can treat a hi-fi room. I get it.
Budgets, man. I mean, when I was in college, I couldn't afford to spend on a hi-fi system. Like, I had a nice like clip system that I bought from Circuit City back in the day, but it wasn't really hi-fi, you know? So I tried to buy a nice pair of headphones because I thought I was doing something with that. But I mean, sometimes it's just budgets and where people are in their life. Like, can't afford to have or you just don't have a space. And even though you might have a full-on house, you might not have a space to put a high-end system. Or if you got kids running around, you're like, I don't want to buy all this sensitive stuff because they're going to destroy it. Get that. Totally get it. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. And headphones are a brilliant choice on that. It's just make sure you're getting headphones that aren't marketing headphones. Do some listening tests. Figure out what works. What I would recommend, if you're building a hi-fi setup, get yourself a dedicated amplifier for your headphones. Don't get an integrated one. Get a dedicated one made for headphones. Make sure your headphones are directly compatible with that amp that you're getting, because if it's not, you're not going to get the best experience. Just put some thought into what you're buying. I think that stuff kind of makes a difference.
Yeah, and I think just quickly to finish up on, there's a couple of different ways you can use headphones. One, for convenience, right? You put them on, you're on the go. That's a whole different situation to what I think the question was about, which is dedicate yourself a little spot in your apartment, your bedroom, your lounge room, wherever. Buy yourself a proper headphone amplifier, possibly a DAC that can couple to that if you're serious about doing something at a more budget-friendly price, but where you can still get good sound. Get yourself a nice, comfortable chair, and then that's your space. And then you that is similar to what we are doing in a bigger space with a conventional hi-fi system as such. But you're just doing it in a head-fi situation, and that's totally acceptable. And there's plenty of great gear out there these days, amazing gear that is really well priced, that can get you very, very close to that quality reproduction. But some of the things that in that question, and you get the truth from us here on this show, is that we just don't feel, I just lose that sense of realism in the space with headphones. Like Lou was saying, you turn your head, nothing changes. What you're hearing when you turn your head, by the way, just to get a bit more dug into that, is phase differences.
Yeah.
So, but when you move your head, there's a difference in that point where you listen to. There's always one great point that we set our rooms up to listen to in, right? But when you move your head, what you're hearing is differences in phase. So, but what our brain perceives that as is space. We see that as distance.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And that's that realism that is lost in headphones for me.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was trying to articulate. Yeah, that's what I was trying to. Yeah, that sense of space is what I was trying to articulate. That I kind of lose when I have headphones. But I got to tell you, I mean, I'm happy with the Bathies. I mean, they're okay. They're better than some of the other ones I've had, but I don't think they're brilliant. They're not going to replace my stereo.
No.
You know, but when I travel on a plane. When I'm traveling on a plane, they sound great. And I got to tell you, when I download a 4K movie that has nice sound in it and I use the DAC, the movie sounds wonderful. So no complaints there. Mitch says he took our advice. He started to do some isolation. It's made a huge difference. Great, Mitch. I know that you're getting ready to review. So Mitch has a channel. He's also been featured on the Audiophile Show. He's got a little bit a growing channel. But he just got some great things in his room that he's going to be leaving a review for. But he texted me earlier and said that it was all inspired by our last video, Shane. So he's reached out and got some equipment since that. We got a comment that AI is still in its infant stage. I agree. I think this is even true in the real world. It's not about even just an audio. As somebody who lives in emerging technologies, we are still in the very beginning of what AI is actually going to do. And I'm still waiting for Skynet and Terminator, man. So we'll see what happens with that.
I'll be back.
Let's see here. I'm just skimming through. I would love to put every comment on here, but obviously there is a lot built up here, guys.
Well, we love you all for that too. So thank you so much for all participating in this, because this is why we're doing this.
Yes.
This is why Louie's giving up his Saturday night in the States, and I'm up early on a Sunday morning after a decent night last night, because just by the way, my sporting team won and is off to the grand final next weekend. So go the Geelong Cats. They will granny.
There you go. There you go.
I have had far too much to drink, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, it's late here, mate, and you know, you were texting me. You're like, "Hey, you're 10 minutes late to the pre-show," and I'm
drinking water.
You think this is coffee in this Macintosh? You're mistaken. Okay, we got a question in from Mark. Do you guys recommend speakers for demo for my next upgrade speakers at the moment? Are Osborne EOS Elite reference speakers on my radar demo? Or I don't know the Osborne EOS Elite reference. I don't know if you had a chance to demo them and can give advice here.
I've actually had them in my room only very recently.
There you go. So you're the man to talk about it. I don't know if you know what he's comparing them to. If you have experience with those.
With it. Well, look, those other speakers toward the end of your question are a heck of a lot more expensive than the Osbornes.
Oh, the Osbornes, okay.
Yeah, look, Greg is a fantastic speaker builder, I have to say. I will soon have his grand monuments, which are his absolute flagship, 175 kilo monsters. I think they're about as tall as me. And I'm not overly tall, but by the same token, these things are like, 5'8" or 5'9" or something like that. They're about my height, and I'll be getting them in the room very soon. I've had the EOS just recently, which I've done a review on those on the channel, and I've had the Titans as well, which is an earlier review that I looked at, and I've had the Epitomes in my room. So I've had quite a few Greg speakers in my room now. All of them represent amazing value for money. All of them absolutely punch miles above their price point as far as sound reproduction goes, and build quality. Look, I'm not an ad for Osborne speakers, but I also am very impressed with what Greg does. And how he goes about what he does. So
they're all hand built, right? You were saying, Shane, right?
They're all hand built. Greg builds them. Greg hand winds his all of his inductors for his crossovers, and all point-to-point wired, all done by Greg. Greg literally bespokely builds these speakers one at a set at a time. He has a cabinet maker that makes the cabinets for him to his standards, and I haven't seen anything other than nigh on perfection every time a set of those speakers comes into my room. And he uses really high quality drivers that we all know from ScanSpeak and See It and all the really top brands. So he's going above and beyond, and I just think they're great value for money for what they are. So look, I think I would definitely have a look at the EOS. In fact, I've still got the EOS Elite reference in my spare room right now, and they are an amazing little speaker. It depends again on the situation as to what size your room is and what have you, but they were quite comfortably able to be adequate in my listening room. Yeah. Although, as I say, when I put my Wilsons back in, it's like, wow, okay. You
were quite happy. I remember you using those for a while and placed it. Yeah. You were quite happy with them. You really for the dollar amount. You were saying this is a really wonderful buy.
Phenomenal.
You and I were talking about it. They're a great buy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So out of the four, what is it? 3 speakers that Mark is asking about. It seems like you're a fan of the Osbornes, and I know you have a direct.
The CE1 TX I've listened to. It's an amazing speaker, really quite a good speaker. It's a little bit on the analytical side compared to the Osbornes, I would say. The Borisons are amazing, but like honestly, you can buy 8 sets of Osbornes for one set of them. It depends on where you're going on budget. I mean, my advice would be if you are looking at something like the Osbornes, I would give them a listen for sure. I mean, you can ring Greg up and have a demo anytime you like. If you're around, hopefully you're I don't know where you're from, but hopefully you can do that. But as I say, they're a very impressive speaker for what they are. And those other speakers are also very impressive speakers. But the Borisons are quite size defining in the sense that but so are the EOS Elite reference. They produce a very big sound for a very small footprint. The Borisons do that too. The TADs, a great look, still an amazing speaker, beautiful finish on the TADs. Everything TAD is stunningly built. But I just find them just a little bit dry and analytical when they're pushed. I just don't think it depends on your system. Again,
I was going to say, it's all about the system synergy, which we talked about earlier, right? Yeah. Because if you have a very detailed and resolving system to begin with, then it's going to feel like it's more,
So you're only going to accentuate that with the TADs, I think. You really look, if we're trying to get system synergy right, and this is very difficult to do, what we want to do is try and pick neutral products right across the board. So that nothing, and then when you change something,
you hear it.
You can hear the change.
Yeah, you hear it. Mitch says AI cleaning up classic albums. He seems to be in favor with. And then we also have a question here with equipment. AI DSP option to convert stereo mix albums to mono. Listen, I have a whole, we're going back into AI again. I have a whole thing that I think AI would be really cool for, and it's going to piss a lot of analog people off. And keep in mind, I love analog, right? I'm a record guy. Look behind me.
He's a record
if you're not familiar with me, if you never see my channel and you're here because of Shane, look behind me. I have a massive record collection.
Over 5,000, isn't it, mate?
It's close to 5,000. So I love analog, but I would love to be able to say, can we use something like DS Audio's technology? We're using a laser to read a groove. Take that and interpolate it into a box that can analyze those grooves in real time, be able to understand the music that's being played, be able to offer real-time correction into that music, to clean everything up, and to be able to spit it back. And can we do that with actually not even having a needle hitting the groove by even just a laser reading of it, that AI is interpolating what the groove modulations are to be able to shoot that back to give you a full spectrum audio and never damage the groove. Imagine being able to play a record some way or some fashion, not scanning a record, never damaging a groove, never you never have record degradation, and using technology to be able to. Now, listen, this is becoming very digital at this point. The hardcore analog people are going to be like, no effing way I'm going to ever want to do that. But I wonder if the art of that is possible and what that would be like, right? Of being able to imagine being able to analyze the record groove and being able to give you virtually almost everything that digital gives you as being a wider spectrum and just being able to provide a larger range. Like, imagine giving you all the benefits of digital, but from an analog recording that's being done in real time. I don't know. I just think that we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what we can do with AI technology.
Yeah,
I think about those things all the time, but I don't begin to know how the hell to put that together. If
Says the computer whiz.
Yeah, I'm not a programmer, mate. I still have other problems. I mean, we got a lot of comments around this. We're talking about streamers and DACs. We're talking about older pressings here. Seems like that was a hot topic. Steve Wilson just did a remastering of Deep Purple. That sounds really good. I haven't heard it. Let's see here. Let me see if we got a question here. Can you tie Shazam into Tidal or Cobus? I don't know if you can. You use Shazam. I don't know if you can tie it in.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. I've never done it that way. I sort of do it the old-fashioned way. Once I've got a title and artist, then I go into Rune and dig it up that way. So I'm doing it the old-fashioned way, the analog way.
The analog way. The analog way.
The analog way with digital.
Hattori mentions about Pussifer. I just did a whole thing about Pussifer, so he's getting on that. High-res streaming, do we think we're going to replace vinyl? I don't think so. I don't think high-res streaming is going to ever replace vinyl, because I think the folks that enjoy vinyl, like myself, is going to continue to spin vinyl. And there's what I love about records is there's so many different ways to upgrade your experience on the same record. So I can change turntables, I can change tone arms, I can change cartridges, I can go through recalibration of set things, I can change my phono preamp, and I can hear a different experience in each one of those changes on the same record. And I think that is, if somebody really loves analog and they love getting the most out of their collection, those tweaks just put you on this area of exploring your own collection, your own music. Because anytime, like anytime I get a new cart, or anytime, like I just got a new tone arm, man. I can't really talk about it yet because I haven't released it yet, but it's a very rare tone arm design. It's very, very exclusive design from a notable tone arm company that made one kind of for me and somebody else. But they just sent one to me. And the first thing I'm going to do is go pull out records I know, because I know they're going to sound different. Right. And I love that fact of it. Now, could you say, well, yeah, but you can get that same experience flipping DACs. But I think there comes a point where you get to a near end game DAC where those changes are not as drastic as changing a cart, changing a phono pre, changing your tone arm. Like Shane, I'd be honest with you, have one of the best DACs in the market, man. I don't know where you go from where you're at.
Actually, funny you say that. I've reached out to a company.
Shoot.
And you don't even know about this. You don't even know about this. This is happening live. This might also be one of our little chats, but we've got the whole rest of everybody else listening in as well. I reached out to a company. I'm not going to say who they are at this point. And I requested a review sample of their latest DAC. And
we'll see if it compares.
Right. So I don't want to give it all away, but what I will say is that this shouldn't give it away. They do not have distributorship in this country yet. The moment they do, they have promised me they will be sending me a DAC to have a listen to. Now, this particular DAC might, dare I say it, become my new reference.
I don't know about all that. And I'm going to say that because you and I have had this conversation a few times. And then when you finally listen to it and you really have a chance to explore, you're like, yeah, it's really good. but it's still not better.
Yeah. Well,
We'll
hey,
see.
if
We'll
that's the
see.
case, I'll tell everybody that's the
I
case.
know you will. You
But
always
if
do.
it's
You're very transparent, no matter what. And then even
but
if
if
it's
it's not,
off, you're transparent.
if it's not, then I'm going to probably have to sell my house to own it.
Golly. What's your favorite monologue? Apparently, somebody wants to know.
What's my favorite monologue? Oh.
I don't know.
It just goes from here to here and out there. I don't, and in fact, even when I do my videos, I don't script anything. I just, what's in my heart and in my head comes out of my mouth. That's how I know how to be authentic. It's not preparing words to get it all perfect, and often it isn't, but it's just honesty personified. Yeah. That's all I know how to be. You know, my grandfather said to me many, many moons ago, he said, just be good at being you, because everyone else is taken.
Yeah. And we have so I'm trying to fire through this. Charles makes a comment about headphones being a hot subject. I would agree. It is a very hot subject. More and more people are bringing it up. So, and I do think they produce good sound. It just depends. You know, the thing is like, you don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
And for most people, getting a really nice pair of headphones is going to be transformational. They're going to be blown away. It's going to sound amazing to them. And they're going to love it. And they're going to go tell all their friends about how wonderful these headphones are. But to compared to what is always the question, you know, and I think
their experience.
And it's a personal experience, right? It's easy to say something like, oh, my home system's the best system I ever heard. Well, compared to what? Did you hear all the systems? Have you heard other systems, etc.? Like, what do you use as a comparison, right? So you're right. I think headphones are becoming more and more popular. Charles brings up a good point. They're becoming more and more popular. More and more people are looking for them. And I think one of the reasons that people are getting pushed into headphones today is because the cost of hi-fi, it's at least here in the States, if I can say, has continued to increase. Components that were, 10 grand are now 13, 14, 15. So you're almost dealing with a 50% price increase. And I'm just using 10 grand as an entry point. If you're getting a $20,000 Vitus amp, that's now 25, 26, almost 30 grand. If you're buying a $15,000 pair of speakers 2 years ago, those speakers are almost 20 grand or 18, 19. Because of the cost of importing them and everything else now has gone way up. I'm not trying to make this political. I don't care. But I'm saying the cost of hi-fi has gone up. And that has made things like headphones become more and more of a conversational piece because people want a great audio experience without having to pay a surcharge that it takes to get equipment in. And I respect that. And that's 100% a real thing that we didn't talk about. Another variable in the headphone game that we didn't talk about earlier.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And cost effectiveness in this hobby, when you start moving into the middle and the high end of it, you need deep pockets. What's happening in America at the moment, and again, not getting political, but just with what's going on with tariffs and what have you, it's making everything into the States a lot more expensive than the general increase in price, with inflation that happens, as we go through the years.
I mean, tariffs alone, like I ordered something and I had to pay 150% tariff. I had to pay that. The company didn't pay that. I paid that. So I paid for the device twice because 100, and then I had to pay it again a half time. So it was 2.5 times the cost of the regular price to get a hi-fi component in here because of tariff costs. And that's just, there's not a lot of people that are willing to do that, we do get
looking at alternatives.
Yeah. So, I mean, and who's going to end up paying for that in the end of the day is consumers. Companies can't pay for that.
They can't absorb those costs.
And that's why the prices are going up. So more and more people are interested in headphones because, maybe things will change in the future, but it makes headphones a lot more approachable when you have to, deal with that, right? And especially when you're thinking about building a system and you're kind of starting from entry level and you have to buy all the components. And if you're not, if you're not buying a lot of American made components, if you live in America, they can get very expensive very quickly. You're paying a tax on a lot of the things that you
Yeah.
would have not necessarily paid a tax on a year or two ago.
Well,
John mentions, go ahead.
it's one of those things, just quickly, that really, you know, we in Australia used to tariff imported
Yeah.
cars because we were protecting our own local car industry.
That's right.
That didn't end up working out in the end because we don't have a car industry, a local car industry in Australia anymore. It's all gone.
Mm.
So, of course, all the tariffs dropped, the protectionist type tariffs dropped, and all of a sudden we get this free market arrangement where prices drop down, and now you see all kinds of cars on the road. So the only, in my experience, economics 101, the only thing that tariffs do is hurt the country that imposes the tariff. It's because it's the consumer at the end of the day that ends up footing the bill. It's not that, you're right, it's not the country that has the product that exports it to you is still charging the same amount of money. At the end of the day, those charges, when they come into any country, right, have to be passed on. There's a certain amount of it which gets absorbed by businesses, which hurts businesses' bottom lines.
That's right.
And then they can only do so much before they've got to then start to pass those costs on in the form of a price increase. So
yeah,
the end user gets kicked in the keister.
We don't really smoke that much in our country anymore, Shane. But I always gave an example of what I call the smoker tax. You can go to certain states where cigarettes are very expensive, and you can go to certain states where they're not. And the reason why certain cigarettes, the same brand, are more money in a certain state is because they're taxed and sometimes double taxed, meaning that they're taxed when they come in and they're taxed when they're sold, or they're taxed when they're imported and are taxed when they're distributed. And that's why those cigarettes are more money. It's not because the venue that's selling them wants to make more profit. It's because there's additional taxes that are applied because of state laws and county laws, etc. Which is why some places is almost $10 for a pack of cigarettes, and other places is $4.59. It's not making the money. It's just the taxes. And somebody was in retail for a while and used to have a retail store and used to sell cigarettes in their store, I'm telling you, that's 100% what it is. My cigarettes that I sold in my store had double tax on them. And I made the same margins as somebody out of state buying taxes or buying cigarettes that were half the cost of mine. It's just the way it was.
That's the way it is. The
John
end user gets it.
Yeah, I want to switch subjects. John's asking about isolation, room treatment, or any other upgrades. I'm going to say power. Power, I think, is one of the things that can really make a huge difference. I don't know what you're thinking here, Shane, but I think power, making sure you have a clean power source, power supplies, making sure you have a good power conditioner. When you start getting from mid-fi and going into hi-fi, those things make a huge difference and can really change the sound and performance of your system. A lot of folks, especially if you're starting to buy some of the high-end amplifiers and stuff, they tend to ship you, for the most part, they'll tend to ship you a standard cable. But if you read oh shoot, the name just that lost me. The very popular tube company that makes a whole bunch of tube amps and preamplifiers owned by the
Prima Luna?
No, not Prima Luna, the other one. God, I had it until I was just talking about it. The female-owned one. Fremer was a huge fan of that company for quite some time. I can't think of the damn name now.
Live television, folks.
Shoot, yeah, exactly. This is what happens when you get older. Oh God. It's gonna hit me at the most inappropriate time.
I've got one for you that Paul McGowan at PS Audio, he will ship products. They know straight away that the cable, the licorice strap, that power cable they send is only there as a courtesy, and most other companies do the same thing as well. It's only there as a courtesy to get you going. But and here we go. Now this will light a whole lot of other people up about the cable deniers. But I cannot begin to tell you how many times I put people in my room that are cable deniers, and I have converted them like that. Yeah. Like I simply change a cable in and out, and they go, "Well, I didn't do anything else. I just changed the power cable, or I just changed the set of interconnects, or I just changed the speaker cables." A lot of it is the system's ability to resolve that for a number one, and your ability to be able to resolve that. Because sometimes you can say to people, can you hear that? They can't hear it. And if they can't hear it, then great. Use the the 50-cent licorice strap molded power cable. Use lamp cord. All power to you, and lucky you, because unfortunately I can hear all those differences, and it drives me bonkers. I wish cables didn't matter.
Yeah,
but
same.
I'm here to tell you, folks.
Expensive. Yeah,
yeah, it's a bloody expensive part of the hobby that is another layer on top of it all. I wish they didn't matter. God, I wish they didn't matter, but they do, folks. And there's a whole nother live stream. We could talk about why they matter and what changes for why they matter, but I'm not going to get into that now because that'll just take half an hour to explain.
But power induces noise, and noise in your system, whether it's analog or digital. I think digital is a little bit more sensitive to it than analog, because inherently you have noise in analog, whether it's surface noise or whatever. But digital is a little bit more sensitive to it. A lot of that comes from power. You clean up the power, and that stuff goes away. And that's why all those filters and everything else make a difference. And Manly was a company, Manly Laboratory.
Oh yeah, Manly.
I was thinking of. And in their manual, they say, we know you're going to switch this out with a better power cable anyway. Like, they put it in their manual, right? They know, right? So to your point, they send you a power cable for convenience, knowing that you're going to switch it out to something different to begin with. So it's not uncommon. I think power, but I think it's worth investing into upgrading the power on devices and components that you know are going to be in your stack for a while, because cables for power can also get quite expensive.
Well, they can get crazy expensive. I mean, like in my room, I've got 3 20-amp dedicated lines that come from my.
That's a whole different conversation, right?
And
the power from the street is a different conversation.
Power delivery.
And the outlet is a different conversation, right?
Yeah. I mean, all of those things for me have all been things I've looked at and worked on. So I've got 2 dedicated lines with single receptacles on the end of them for my 2 monoblock amplifiers. That's all that goes in there. There's 1 power point, 1 plug goes in for each monoblock. And I've got a third one, which powers my Plexar 3000 power conditioner, which is a balanced power conditioner. So what that does, and all my other components are plugged into that. So 3 separate lines doing that, all with high quality RCDs in the board. I've gone, that's another level again, but that's how much power makes a difference. And if you don't think I didn't hear how much better my amplifiers sounded the very moment I switched them on after I put those lines in the room, the Sparky friend of mine was still in the system, and he's not an audiophile, and he just went, shit. He heard it immediately, and so did I. And it was a very big difference. So that's what happens when you get the noisiness that is a fridge, that is a microwave. All these things pollute the power that goes into our system. We're talking about a very sensitive product here, reproducing very low voltages. So if you don't get the power right, then you're going to interrupt what that component is capable of doing.
That's right.
Now, talking about power supplies on the digital side, stay tuned, folks. A little plug for me. I've got something coming up pretty soon, which, well, let's just say is already blowing my mind. And you know about that, mate.
I know you teasing me about it. Yeah. even your
so
wife
that's coming,
which is
so that's coming as well soon on the channel. And I know Louie's got heaps of stuff that he's looking at the moment as well. So yeah, if you bolt yourselves into these 2 channels, and then you get our little combined show once a fortnight or thereabouts, then we hope to cover everything you might want to know about. So that's a little self-plug for you, me, and our show, mate. I'll shut up.
Yeah. And we got another question from Wes asking about 4 ohms, and does it mean that the speakers run at 4 ohms all the time, or that they dip? Actually, it doesn't mean that they run all the time. 4 ohm nominal means that sort of the impedance averages around 4 ohms, but in practice, it can sort of rise well above or even dip below the figure, and it really depends on your frequency. Yeah. So
it always does. Yeah. When someone says 4 ohms, it's an average. Nothing stays at 4 ohms. Nothing stays at 8 ohms, at 6 ohms. Music is variable. The load that the amplifier sees from the speaker is variable.
Yeah. Yeah. Hattori mentions about AI and doing spatial imaging. There are some companies out there that are doing spatial imaging with headphones out there. I don't have enough experience with them. I'm trying to actually see if I can review one or two of those because I'd love to get experience with them. So I can't really comment on how well they are, but I have read reviews of certain companies that say that there's sort of a digital engine that can interpolate this idea of like you turn your head and the music shifts with you and everything. I don't have direct experience to really comment. I don't like commenting on things I don't have experience with.
And I can't either because I don't either.
Yeah, I know they exist though.
I do
So,
too.
and I don't think it's AI. I think it's more like a DSP thing.
Yeah, it is. I've heard good commentary more than bad commentary about what, some of the feedback that I've been getting from people that do know a little bit more about it have said they think it's, it might be perceived as being good because it's different.
Yeah.
And I did pose that question to them and they thought about it for a minute and went, yeah, maybe you're right. Just because it's a different way of skinning a cat. But, I guess time will tell.
Yeah, John's still on for 2.5. We've been on for almost 2 hours, Shane, and we never answered the questions that the our viewers submitted to us. But John's still on, so yeah, John in the UK, 2:30 in the morning. Shane mentions it. I'm sorry, Charles mentions a great thing here about choosing headphones. Do some blind testing, see which ones you look good. I think that's good. We got a comment here from Mark saying DS Audio doesn't read records. Yeah, I agree. I'm saying that I think the next evolution of what DS Audio has done is to be able to do that, is to be able to read the records with labels. So I do agree with you, Mark, and 100%. I'm sorry if I said something that was confusing. Yes, they do not read with a laser. But what I'm saying is I think that the evolution of what DS Audio has done is eventually, if we can get to a laser type readers or laser based stylus, would be very interesting, and then have AI kind of figure out what those readings are to interpolate the music and send it back to us.
The next step. It's the next step.
Yeah. We have Sugar Cube. Yeah, the Sugar Cubes are wonderful devices, especially if you listen to older records or records VG Plus or under. It can make the experience it can increase it. If you're not familiar with a Sugar Cube, I have one. A Sugar Cube goes in your analog chain. It's typically after your preamplifier before you get into your phono preamplifier before you get into your preamplifier and or integrated amp. And what it does is it actually provides real-time noise removal. Depending on what unit you have, a lot of them do pop and click removal. And if you get into higher end ones, they can also do surface noise reduction. So if you have a noisy record in general, it can reduce the sound. There's a very, very, very slight audible difference of having that enabled or not. If you read most reviews, and there is a, I don't know, 100, 200 page thread on Steve Hoffman forums about the Sugar Cube. And you're going to see that majority of the folks on there say there's really no audible difference when it's in place and when it's not in place. And I will agree. I think that you do hear a little bit of an audible difference, but it's not enough to say that it takes away from the experience. It's almost like removing those pops and clicks on an older record is a lot more enjoyable than that 1% audible degradation you get by having it in play. So it just makes sense to use it if you don't want to hear the pops and clicks. Now, some people love the pops and clicks. That's why they listen to analog. It just enhances that experience for them. If that's the case, that's not for you. But Sugar Cubes are wonderful devices from a little company, independent company based in the Bay Area in California. So great call out there. I'm just going to skip through. I'm just looking for questions. There's a lot of great comments here. We have tons of great comments here. Maybe Shane, you said there was one that recently came in from one of your viewers that they wanted you to address. Maybe we can address that while I skim for them.
So Dan, one of my subscribers, who unlike some other stayers amongst us all here who are still up in Europe or UK at this time of the morning, Dan sent me a question and said wanted to talk about what is advisable, what we should do between the speakers, and as far as what the best method was to increase soundstage and what have you. Well, in the center of the front wall behind the speakers, you should be using diffusion And you should also be using bass trapping in the corners, in those corners, as I spoke about earlier. But predominantly you're using, and every room will be different. So look, I've got to get into these rooms and hear them to know what the best way to go about this is. But I'm talking in general terms, I would be using diffusion between the speakers. And what you generally tend to hear, the differences you hear is you'll get much more soundstage depth when you scatter those frequencies and delay them from getting to you, because our brains are very sensitive at being able to decipher depth perception in how quickly we hear something from a fundamental to an echo and when we hear an echo, well, our brain immediately knows it's further away from us. It's the old situation when we were running around, as cave people with, clubs in our hands, and we were trying to kill something to eat. Well, when we were walking through and this goes right back to right back to when we were, beginning, when we got up off all fours and started walking around. And it's where when we hear a twig snap in the where we were, we're very quick at being able to look and point out exactly where that happened. We've got great ability at being able to pick direction up. And with direction, we're also very good at being able to pick how far away from us through sound that possible threat could be. So what we want to do in the audio realm is we want to scatter those first reflections or absorb them by slowing them down and diffusing them. Then they come back to our brain at a point where we've decided sympathetically. It's not something that we do. It's like our eyes blinking, our heart beating. We can control when we blink our eyes to a certain point, but our heart beating and things like that, it just happens. It's part of our electrical system in our body that keeps us alive. Well, this is what also happens when we hear that reflection, and it comes to us after a certain amount of time after the fundamental, we throw it away. We don't even think about it anymore. We just perceive it as an echo, because what we're doing is concentrating on what's happening directly in front of us, because that's what we're concentrating on. Yeah. So being able to delay those reflections and those frequencies from getting to our ear at a certain amount of time after the fundamental note means our sympathetic hearing system throws it away as an echo, and we don't focus on it. So that's that area that you would focus on predominantly in most cases, and I stress this, in most cases with diffusion. So he's talking about on top of a television. I've got a TV in front of my room. I remember the question a bit clearly now. I've got a 75-inch TV in front of my room. I've covered that TV. My wife just does not get me one little bit. It's the most expensive audio panel that you could ever hope to have. Sound treatment
I remember asking him, like, did you put panels on your flat screen TV? And you're like, yeah, of course.
And you know why I did that? Because I could take that TV out and put it out in another room, and then maybe I will do that one day, and I'll make a panel up. But that panel is probably about at least a foot, so 12 inches or 30, 40 centimeters away from the front wall. So there's a step there. And what I've done is I put an acoustic blanket over the television, a very heavy acoustic blanket, and then I have pinned to that blanket acoustic treatment in diffusion. So what I got when I did that was phenomenal. Immediately, I got all this depth, and I'll sit in there and you'll hear something, and it sounds like it's coming from the room,
right?
Behind the speakers in the next room behind that wall. There's so much depth in that perception now, because it's stepped, so it's scattering. It's doing a fantastic job of delaying those frequencies that are happening around the middle of the image. So image quality improved dramatically, depth improved dramatically. So it's a $3,500 panel.
Say most people buy a flat screen to watch the game. You have one to provide fucking diffusion.
I know. I mean, my wife just looks at me. My wife looks at me and goes, "You're bonkers. You seriously are mad." And I'd probably agree
Well,
whether
we
I
do
am.
another room, use it somewhere else, mate. That's what I would have done.
Well, I think that's what I'm going to do, because otherwise, because people come in and they just do not get it. But why would you do that? I said, well, it was there. So I just covered it up and put some diffusion in front of it. And we're like, holy moly, how good was it? But what I've got to do is make a panel up. Yes, I know that was wrong to do, but I've done it.
All right, listen, we're pushing 3 hours. Let's try to do 3 more questions. I think we have 3 more questions in total. And sending on today.
I'll tell you what. I'll address a couple that are on my list very quickly. How's that sound?
If we can do a rapid fire, let's do it.
All right.
Now I commentary. Because I know you had some mates send you some questions, Shane, and
I'll just subscribe.
And I know I had some, but a lot of mine were analog based. And for those that asked questions to me that were analog based, Shane and I just said that there was a lot of great analog questions. We're going to probably do a follow up.
Yep.
And do an analog based one. I think that would be really good. And maybe we can get some other folks in the analog world to come join us. But there was a lot of good analog questions that came in.
We'll definitely be doing this, I think, on a regular basis where we answer your questions, because I think this is really, really helpful for people. But, what process do we use? Let's talk about us. What process do we use to evaluate equipment for review? So do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to?
Okay. So a lot of times when I'm reviewing records, right? So I always start with what I figure is a reference recording, something that I know intimately. I know all the details, etc., of that particular pressing. So when I play it on new equipment, if it's a new amp, a preamplifier, a new cartridge, a new turntable, whatever, I know what I'm used to hearing, and I'm looking for things that are different. And I think when you are making changes to your system, right? So I'm going to take the reviewer side of me out. I'm going to say, because part of me is a reviewer, but also part of me is still in a quest of building my best system at home. And I'll give you an example. I have a bunch of upgrades, right? Like Shane, I was sharing with you earlier. I just got some power upgrades, right? I hope this doesn't have my address on it. I'm sharing it with everybody. I have some power upgrades that have come in from HiFi. I'm going to be upgrading some power stuff, and it's easy for me just to go in and say, "Oh, let me just let's go replace all the power on all this stuff at one shot." But I think it's important to swap one component at a time. Take some time to listen to it, and most equipment needs a burn-in. So it's not replace it, listen, and then go replace something else, listen. It's going to take a few days or a week or so before adding the next component, If I really want to know what's going on, I don't try to make multiple changes at once. And I think also short bursts listening to do like A/B comparisons are really, really helpful. A lot of times what I'll do is, if I'm going to make a change, is if I have a record or even if it's digital, right? Because I do a lot of high res, especially when I'm comparing something that's not necessarily 100% analog. If it's like an amplifier or a preamplifier or something like that, digital is great to do testing in. I'll listen to that song, make the change, and immediately listen right after. So therefore, everything's fresh in my mind. So I'm not just going specifically over, memory. I'm able to kind of digest what's happening in real time. So those short bursts, I think, are really helpful. And if you could do short bursts A/B and blind testing, I think that's really helpful as well. If you can't do blind testing, if you're the one who knows and you're not going to have somebody go futz with your system, which is pretty much me, I always love giving an opinion with somebody else. So whether it's my wife or a friend or a neighbor come over and I ask them, what do they think? What do they like? Do you like if you ever go to the eyeglass person, like A or B, 1 or 2, and they flip through the different things. Well, maybe if you're older, like Shane and I, and you've gone to the eye doctors and they've done that. Do you like 1 or 2? I like 2. Okay. Do you like 1 or 2? I like 1. Asking somebody that question and kind of having a control variable, I think is really important to make sure that what they're saying is consistent. And a lot of times I'll do like what I call a false change. I'll act like I changed something, but I didn't change anything. And I'll ask them, do you like this one or the other one better? And if they say kind of sounds the same to me, I'm like, okay, they're at least paying attention. Because if I don't make a change and they say, oh, this one sounds better, I didn't do anything. Right. So that means you're not really paying attention. So it's harder for me to take what you're saying really seriously. I don't know. Sorry. That's probably a long answer, Shane, to what you're asking for. But that's
well, a lot of what you said is very similar to my process. But I think what it comes down to for me is reference music. I have a pretty extensive list of
Playlist.
reference music. And what I'm in the process of doing at the moment is separating that music up into categories. So imaging, soundstage, all of the areas. I know them in my head, but I want to get this more into an organized form. I've got over 300 tracks in my reference list of tracks that I use to evaluate
things. There's so let's be clear. The reason why folks like Shane and I have a large listening list, a reference list, is because depending on the track, you're listening for different things in that track.
Yep.
It's not just about the details that you know. Like I have a whole playlist of songs that typically clip in a system that's not well put together, right? So it really puts pressure on the system. And I use that a lot, especially when I go to other folks and I want to test their system and I want to know if it's dialed in correctly or not. I'll ask them to play some of those clipping songs to see if I hear clipping, right? So just give me an example, right? And Shane, I know you could almost write a book on all the things that you listen for per song of those 300 and some songs in your playlist.
Yeah, I've got tracks that I use really regularly to evaluate a system's ability to image correctly, because I know what it sounds. And again, this comes down to reference, where we speak about this term reference. I am referencing from my system. So that's my experience. So as a reviewer, I've built a system that is worth many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I've spent a lot of time on room and on power and all the things that all the variables that I can get. Now, whether that's right or wrong is irrelevant. Right. It's my right. It's my reference. So therefore, that's my then ability to be able to decipher the changes. But the next key thing that we didn't talk about that I want to talk about before we wrap this one up is your ability to convey that. So as a reviewer, a good reviewer is going to be able to convey to their audience the reasons for the change, what they're hearing in the change, so that I can bring you guys along into my way of thinking about something. And then that comes down to whether that resonates with you as a watcher of our stuff or whether it doesn't. And if it doesn't, well, then I guess there's plenty of other channels to go and listen to and watch. But if it does, then that's my way. So that ability to be able to convey the sound I'm hearing to the audience in spoken word. That's also I think a test of a really good reviewer.
Yeah, I concur, Shane.
So, okay. So let's go to another one, and we'll try and keep these really quick. What makes a DAC a good DAC? Right. I'll quickly answer this by saying turning ones and zeros into a believable analog waveform. That's what I judge a DAC on. So I want to take the digital sound that the ones and zeros are caught up in, that transfer, that digital sound, and I want to see what that DAC does with that sound and whether it can convince me I'm listening to tape or a record or something that sounds analog, because a DAC is a digital to analog converter. Yeah. So its only job is to turn ones and zeros into a believable sine wave.
Yeah, and I think, Shane, I mean, you have more experience with DACs than I do, just inherently. But I think a good DAC isn't just about chipsets. I think a lot of times people read reviews and you get stuck on chipsets. I think it's about implementation, power supply, clocking, the analog output stage, and I think there's a transparency versus a house sound. And what I mean by that is, like, some DACs are just kind of ruler flatter, and others add warmth and density, and it's really about what you like. But you got to think about things like noise floor, jitter handling. I think these are really critical for micro detail and soundstage depth when you're taking a look at a DAC. And I would also say that, like, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about system synergy. You can't overlook synergy. A great DAC can sound poor if it's mismatched with a preamp or amp. So it's all about how it plays in your system. For me, What I want is a DAC that disappears, where you actually stop thinking about what's going on from a conversion and you just start thinking about how beautiful the music is and how real it sounds in your room. That to me is what constitutes a good DAC.
So again, my oversimplified version of your very articulated point is that and thank you for that. And that is turning those ones and zeros into a believable analog waveform. If we can do that, and all of those things you just said, mate, make perfect sense, because then you stop concentrating on the conversion, you stop looking at the piece of equipment, you close your eyes, you sit back, and you are taken away on that magic carpet ride we all call audio. So that's what a good DAC is to me. So, all right. So I think we've covered the one. There was another one here. Why do you place so much importance on room acoustics? I think we've covered that.
This is another room acoustics show. I think we can skip that. I feel like we've talked a lot about room acoustics.
It's just so important. It's the body of the instrument to which we listen to our system in. So it's got to be taken more seriously than most people do.
And can I just say, as a PSA for folks that are dialing in, if you watch any YouTuber or reviewer or anybody, or if you go to a HiFi show or you're talking to your HiFi store, or anybody that calls himself an expert in audio, and I don't, by the way, I consider myself a student, somebody who's always learning, and they tell you room acoustics don't matter, or it doesn't matter because most people don't do it. It's horseshit. Room acoustics do matter. It has a profound effect on your system. And whether they want to personally go through that experience or not, it's up to them. That's a choice that they get. It's a choice we all get when we're building our systems. It's how we want it to put together. How do we want to treat the room as part of the instrument of the system? But it does matter. It does have a difference in the way that you hear your equipment. And quite frankly, in my humbled opinion, I think room acoustics and isolation, device isolation, speaker isolation, decoupling are the two biggest things that you can do that will give you the biggest change in your system, other than spending a tremendous amount of money on things like speakers or upgrading your source component, etc. I really advise personally, and then I'll stop here, Shane. I really advise, like, if you already spent a modest amount of money into your system and you're like, oh, I still want the next best thing, what should I spend money on? Stop. If you haven't done isolation, you haven't treated the room, that's the next thing you can do, because you're not really hearing. If you haven't done those things, you haven't really heard your equipment. And so for me to even recommend anything for you to go do, all you're going to do is put that in a kind of a messy environment to begin with. And so you're still not going to hear that device. So how are you going to appreciate the upgrade? If I told you to go upgrade your speaker cables and you say, wow, I don't really hear the difference. No crap, because you have so much noise in the room. You're not hearing the intimate details that you should be hearing. To even appreciate the difference of whatever that component is that you're upgrading. So anyway, I feel like we labored this to death.
I was just going to say a perfect example of that, and I'll give you one little quick story which I think really hits this thing home, and I'll be really quick about this. I set a room up for a client who had quite a nice system, and he was just, he was going round and round in circles. He was on this gear merry-go-round where he just kept buying the next most expensive thing, and then he'd ring me and he'd say, oh, it's not any different. It's no better. He was really losing heart in his hobby. And I said, look, I'll come around there and let me have a look at your room and have a listen to your room. I had a look at his room. I had a listen to his room. And then I said, right, I want you to spend $5,000. Stop buying equipment. Spend $5,000 and on this, and this. He did that. I came back into the room. I set that room up acoustically for him, and he put on a track. And he cried his eyes out in front of me. He cried his eyes out. He could not believe it. He hugged me because he just could not believe what he was hearing. And I said, I wish you'd spoken to me about $100,000 ago, because I could have got you that kind of result in your room, because your room was terrible acoustically.
Yeah.
It's so important, folks. You've got to get that right. And not enough people think about it.
The simplest thing to think about here is sound is waves.
Yeah.
If you have waves crashing into waves, you're not going to have the best sound. And if you have a room that it excites the waves crashing into waves in your room, then you're not hearing the best sound.
Yep.
You want to hear the best waves hitting you, right? Like in the end of the day, that's what you want. You don't want a bunch of freaking mess going on in a room. And
well, there'll always be mess in an enclosed space, but what
Sure.
you want to hear is that fundamental hitting you. And
Yeah.
then what happens after that, your brain tosses out. So your brain's your best friend in a lot of instances like that. But you're right. Your point
I'm
about
trying to keep it super simple. Yeah,
it is. And you're dead right. It's that fundamental. It's getting that uninterrupted fundamental presentation to your ears first. That's where the art is in room acoustics, is getting that right. And then delaying and tossing out all the other stuff, which your brain will do for you. So that probably covers that one. So what do we think about, what's our opinion on HiFi tweaks? I'll answer quickly and say they're great. They should be experimented with like anything else in your system, but get your system right first.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. Get your system and your room right first. And if we're talking about tweaks being isolation, that's all part of that equation. All of those areas, including cables, should all be experimented with in some way, shape, or form. But it's later on. You get the fundamentals right first.
Yeah. So we're talking about tweaks, right? So if I'm thinking about tweaks, the definition of a tweak to me is to try to push more out of something that you have. So you're going to tweak something. You already have it. It exists. It's in place. It's standard. It's your go-to. And now you want to make it a little bit better. So to Shane's point, I think getting that baseline configuration right, getting the best out of your system is right. And I think about tweaks for me personally. I think about them in, I would probably put them in 3 different categories. I think sort of one category is what I would call fundamental tweaks. And this is things like cables, isolation, power, things that we've been talking about, right? To make sure that the system is resolving as possible. And then I think you have category 2, I don't really have a name for it, but I would maybe say marginal gains. Things like fuses, if you have tubes, mats, record weights, those kind of things can bring a little bit more. These are very marginal upgrades that you can get. But if you do enough of those marginal upgrades all add up to something that is a next level up. And then, and this is a category for me. It's my own category. It's my definition of what I call snake oil. And my definition of snake oil is that there's no measurable difference. There's nothing that you can hear. You can't repeat it. There's no repeatable impact. There's nothing that is going on that you can say with confidence, with absolute certainty, without bias, that has made a difference. And I am at least a little bit fortunate where I have more. I mean, this is my hi-fi system, but I have a couple audio systems in the house. So sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I just don't hear it here. Let me go plug this in over here. Let me go plug this in over here. And if I don't hear anything, then to me, no matter what it is, it's a little bit snake oil, right? The idea of a snake oil, by definition, is selling you something that really doesn't provide the benefits that is advertised. That's what snake oil is. And so if I test out a component, whether it's a cable, whatever, or an actual device or whatever that advertises to do something, and I don't hear it in 3 different systems in my house, then to me it's my own categorization of snake oil. That's what I label it myself. It's not doing what it's advertised to do. I should hear it somewhere, right? I have a mid-fi, low-fi, and hi-fi system. Something should be able to give to say that this product is making a difference.
Can I throw in though that that's also a subjective thing, because
it is very subjective.
Because like some people that are marketing that product go, we've heard that. I mean, some people are just dishonest, right? But some people truly believe in that thing, but we may not hear it in our system. So that's the subjectivity of it.
We don't sell it on our channel, Shane.
Yep. So it's our snake oil, right? It's true. It's our snake oil. So it's our version of what we call snake oil.
Yeah. That's why I said it's my own definition of but I will go back and I will put conclusion to my categories. I think the biggest tweak anybody can make to their system is placement and setup. It's not accessories.
Yeah.
That's the biggest tweak you can do.
Yeah.
But if we're already saying you had that right, and now we're trying to tweak it from there, those are the categories that I would give.
Yeah. And let's wrap this show up with I think what I think is a great question that we can both answer. And that is, What made us start our YouTube channels? Why did we do this? Why did we? I mean, let's be honest. We didn't do it because we like earning money. We didn't do it because we maybe we did it because we're gluttons for punishment. I'm not 100% sure. But I can say that the reason I did my YouTube channel, the reason I started my channel was because one, and I know Louie's going to say this as well, we're both excited about music, right? It's something that is near and dear to our hearts. So that's one. But my main reason for starting this channel is I've worked as a sound engineer, a tracking engineer, a mastering engineer, a mixing engineer. I've worked on live performances. I've sold high-end audio systems. I've worked in some way, shape, or form in this industry for the best part of 40 years. So because of that, I've learned a lot along the way. I've tossed out some junk that I know isn't true, and I've kept some fundamental things that I think will help anybody that is prepared to listen to me. So that's my reason for starting this channel. It's to help you guys. It's to help all of you to get the best out of your systems and to enjoy the music, to get the emotion from the music, to feel those feelings that well up inside you with music. That's why I do this, we can get the system right so you can get on with enjoying the music.
That's so well, Shane. I'm going to answer that question myself here in a moment, but you mentioned this is going to be probably the last question we answer to wrap up the show. So before we do that, we do have one more technical question in the audience that I really want to touch on. We have a lot of great questions, but this one I think is a really good one. And then I'm going to answer the question you just have. And see, it's the question of, because this comes up a lot. Do you use dual subs in a reference system or not? We both use single subs in our system. So this one's tough. This one is absolutely tough. I think, what are you trying to, for me, I would say, what are you trying to achieve on having dual subs? What are you going for? And what kind of room do you have? For me, my room, my size, if I had dual subs in here, the bass would overpower the music instantly, even though everything's dialed in and turned down, etc. It'd just be overpowering. My bass, my sub already sounds like a center stage. I spent a long time making sure it was crossed over correctly. So it blends into me. If anybody has come here and listened to the music in my room, will agree that the sub just disappears. People don't even realize, because it's so tucked in the corner, that most people, because when you sit in my center seat, you barely see the sub because of where it's positioned in the room. Most people don't even realize I have a sub. They realize it later when they're in the wall looking for records and they look down and like, what's this big box? Oh, you have a sub. They thought all that stuff was coming from the speakers. So I don't know why I would need a separate sub unless I had a big room that I'm trying to take care of. Or if I'm doing, you know, I have a sub here and a sub in the back of the room to fix errors in the room. You know what I mean? Like a swarm kind of setup in the room to adjust frequency issues that are going in a room. But I think for most systems, a single sub, if it's dialed in and crossover right, is probably all you need. Shane, I would love to get you have more expertise around this than I do.
Okay, so from my perspective, dual or swarm sub configurations, this is something that J.R. Leclerc from Wally Tools talks a lot about and works a lot in rooms with, and there's some absolute merit in that. But what you are generally doing when you are working with a swarm arrangement or more than one subwoofer is you are dealing with room modes and frequency issues in a room. Bass is omnidirectional. That what happens with a subwoofer in a room is if it's not, and there is an audible difference. So if we have the sub turned up, we will hear where it's coming from, depending on where we've crossed it over at.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we cross that subwoofer over at a frequency that we can't perceive anymore, which is around 50 hertz and below, then we don't know where it's coming from. We'll just hear it as lots of bass. So the crossover point is important. The attenuation or of the volume is also important, to have that sub, as you said, Louie, disappear so you don't hear it. You do not need, my opinion, more than one subwoofer in a room, in an average size listening room, to get to get that sense of fill and bass. People think, well, you've got 2 stereo speakers and they've got woofers in them. Why wouldn't you have 2 subs? That's an aesthetic thing. It's our minds playing tricks with us, going, well, if one would be lopsided.
But the mind plays tricks because it's not dialed in correctly, and you can hear where the sub is coming from.
That's right. If you can hear where it's coming from, then you've got it crossed up too far. And if you can, or you've got it turned up too loud and crossed over too far.
That's right.
So you turn the crossover down where it rolls out, and you fiddle around with the volume of that subwoofer so that it integrates and blends in. And now it's a difficult art form to get right, but bass is omnidirectional. It cannot be heard if it is dialed in correctly. So 1, 2, 3, 8, 10 subwoofers, it's not going to make any difference. You change the equation around what you do if you've got swarm subwoofers, or if you've got RAL stacks, as you see. You just need less volume.
Yeah.
So that is important.
Yeah. And you know, this is my own personal preference for home audio. I think a single sub does a great job. For home theater, I actually like dual subs or multiple subs. I just do because
impact.
Yeah, it's for the impact. I want to feel the explosion and that pressure in the room. With multiple subs, you're able to feel it more. But I don't need to feel a kick drum in my room. I just want to be able to hear it. And I think that's a little bit of the difference between that. And yes, I think room. There was a question about, is dual subs room dependent? I think so. This is my opinion. I think if you have a large space, dual subs definitely play a role. But depending on your room,
dependent, John. Absolutely.
Yeah. Depending on your room, right?
A big room, you're going to need to move more air pressure around to get that same. I'm just talking about one subwoofer in an average size listening room that most of us listen in. Then one is absolutely more than enough.
Yeah, and John makes a good point. It's like, I like to feel the bass. My wife is the same way. When she comes in my room and listens to her favorite songs on my stereo, she's not necessarily impressed of the sub. Now, this sub is more powerful than any other sub I have in my entire house, but she prefers the home theater setup better because it's designed to be more feeling the bass and feeling the impacts of explosions and stuff for movies than it is for listening to music. She actually likes that better because she can feel the rumble. Here, she doesn't really feel that rumble. It's not overpowering the music. So for her, who likes a lot of dance music and that kind of thing, she prefers actually listening to a lot of her favorite tracks in the movie room, if you will. So again, it all comes down to personal preference.
Subjectivity once again. That crops its ugly head everywhere. Well, not ugly head. That's just that's our perception of what's our good. And that I often say to people, and I'll say this, and I think you say this too, mate. There's no wrong answers here. When I do listening tests, when I do I say to my audience that don't worry about worrying about whether you're giving the right answer. There isn't any right answer. Your right is okay with me. You're allowed to have your opinion, and your right may well be different to my right. And that can come down to a lot of things: experience, how we hear things, the pinna of our ear shape, the connection between our ear and our brain, and what goes on once it gets in here. All of those things are different for each and every one of us, and there's no wrong answers here, everybody. Your right is your right, and that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. You're so spot on. It is all about personal taste, and that's why there's so much different equipment, so many different devices, so many different components, so many different cables, so many different this, because we all don't hear things the same way. So it doesn't mean that because you like something and somebody else doesn't like that, it's wrong. That's not the case at all. You know, it just means that you have a different taste, or you process that information a little bit differently than somebody else. Somebody actually might like things that are a little bit more bright and not overly bassy, while other people might like things that are a little bit more bassy and not necessarily overly bright. It all depends on where. Some people like a little bit of like echo in their music. Some people don't. It's all about what you are looking for. The one thing I will say about subs, and then I'm going to answer the question about what made a YouTube channel. And then Shane, we could talk maybe about our next guest, and then we can wrap the show up. But one thing I will say about subs, and I see this a lot with analog, is if you're constantly changing your sub, the settings on your sub based on what record you're playing, you don't have this stuff dialed in right, man. It really, honest to God, should be set and forget. If the sound's not in the record and you're trying to basically EQ it by your sub to add a little bit more low end because that's your preference, that's different. But if you're like constantly going back and forth on each record because you're trying to tweak the sound to make it sound right, you don't have the stuff set up correctly. Okay. Spend some time to get it set up correctly. You know, here's Shane, can I give a tip for people who don't know how to set this shit up correctly? Because we've been talking about AI, right? Here's what you can do. Do a test, right? Record it with Rue, do a test. Take your test and upload it to ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT, I am trying to cross over my sub correctly. And it will literally tell you what ChatGPT would fire back and say, here's the test to go run, record these for Rue, upload the results. And it will ask you what sub you have. It'll ask you what amp you have. It'll ask you what preamp you have. Give it all that information. And it'll literally give you within a reasonable range. You still need to do some of your own tweak into your own ear, because depending on where your chair is and all that stuff in your room, but it'll get you about 90% there on what you need to do by reading the room if you're recording correctly. And then it's just a little bit of tweak up and down.
Dude, you're going to put me out of a job.
I'm telling you, it's super simple. ChatGPT will tell you how to position that sub crossed over pretty well. And quite frankly, it's a lot of folks that reach out to me about, hey, I just bought a sub. How do I integrate into my system? I tell them to get ChatGPT and get Rue and start there. And then that's going to get you 90 to 95% there. And then it's slight tweaks to make sure that it actually sounds the way that it's supposed to sound, because they're not there in the room. It doesn't know, but it's going to get you, it'll tell you phases off. It'll tell you that it's crossed over wrong. You'll be impressed on how much information you're going to get by just sending it a couple screenshots in your Rue report.
The only thing that I would caveat I would add to that is that in some recordings where they're bass light, the only thing you should be adjusting on your subwoofer, if you're really that focused on every track, is attenuation. So you're only going to bring the volume up a bit more to fill up, but the settings are the settings to your room. So once they're set up, they don't need to be changed. Once you've got them right, the crossover point, the slope angle, all of that, that's dialed in, that's done. The only thing you might need to change, depending on whether it's lacking bass or it's got too much, is your volume control. That's it.
Yeah, and in short, you know, I think once I finally got my sub dialed in right, it's just disappeared, and I don't even think about it anymore. I don't touch it, I don't play with it, I don't mess with it, I don't do anything with it. You know, it's just
Charles said in comments there I noticed that flicked up very quickly, that when he was in my room, he said he didn't notice the sub. So it's
and that's
all about
the goal.
integration.
That's the goal. It's just like the components and the DAC and everything else we were talking about earlier. The idea is for it to disappear in a room, and you're not focused on it anymore. You're just focused on the music that's coming out. And I cannot tell you, and Shane, I'm sure you had this too, how many times people come over, heard the system, and they didn't even realize they were listening to a sub. They just knew the music sounded great. And then it wasn't until later they realized there's a sub in the corner. This has happened, you know.
Yeah. The only difference with mine is I've got a 116 kilo Wilson Watchdog subwoofer, which just says, "Look at me, I'm here."
Yeah, yours is a coffee table. That's a different story.
You know, it looks like a little bar fridge.
You can serve breakfast on yours, mate. That's a completely different story.
It's a rock. You knock on it, it's like knocking on concrete. You end up hurting your knuckles, but it is what it is. And if you're not looking at it, you don't notice it there. But it is a bit of a thing in my room. It has to be said.
All right, let me answer the question, because we actually both got this question, which I think is interesting, about what made you start a YouTube channel. For me, I think a lot of it came down to a channel, and I don't mean that from a YouTube sense. I'm just saying like an outlet to share my passion and a little bit to demystify this hobby. I think there was a lot of people that think that analog audio or high-end audio isn't really accessible without, you know, tons of money or having like a science degree. I wanted to kind of show that it's obtainable. I wanted to show that anybody can get into it. And I really, honest to gosh, the reason I started the channel and not just been somebody on forums, because I was on forums and Discord channels and all that stuff for quite some time before I decided, hey, it's time to open up a channel, is quite frankly the community factor. The community interaction, comments, questions, shared experience, things that keep the hobby alive is the number one reason I have a YouTube channel. The moment my community dies, I don't care if it, 20,000, 40,000, 100,000 subscribers. If I don't have a community, it's not fun for me anymore.
Yeah.
When I say, hey, what are the latest things that you're listening to, and people respond, that's what keeps me going to do the next video, to do the next video, to do the next video. To your point, Shane, I didn't do this to make money. I actually, man, I think I lost more money than I've made money since starting a YouTube channel. And quite frankly, it takes a lot of time. I think people don't realize the amount of effort and time that goes into, I mean, even reviewing a simple album and doing a comparison on an older press. I mentioned earlier in my last video that came out on Friday that I'm going to compare the Axis Bold as Love 33 RPM UHQR stereo mono to the new 45. Now it's controversial. We don't have time to get in today whether that's a right decision by Chad or not. I don't care. That's a discussion for a different day. But I mean, you got to think, I got to listen to that album 4 times, write notes, think about it, process that, come up with a talk track, film it, film the B-roll, edit that, come up with a title, description, thumbnail, release that. It's hours. It's hours worth of work. It is literally almost right for one video. So you know what I'm doing on my Saturday while y'all are out there having a good time, drinking, partying, going out to the mall, spending time with your significant other, etc. I'm here filming content for you. And I got to tell you, I might make 25 cents out of that video. It's not worth it. Yeah. The record alone cost me $150. It's not worth it, right? It's not worth it. But I do it because of the community, the the interaction, the comments, that all of that is the reason I get up and do it.
That's the reason
John,
we buy.
Hold on, wait. 3:30, John. Hold on. We're about to announce
3:30, John. Oh my God!
Stay with us. 10 more minutes, John. We're coming to a close, man. Stay with us. Stay awake. Put the what Tom and Jerry did. They staple their eyes open, right?
Yeah. You get the toothpicks.
Yeah, the toothpicks. That's what it was. I had some toothpicks, John. I'd lend to you, but I don't know if I have them anymore, man. Sorry, I don't have it anymore.
John, my God, he is impressive. That is absolute commitment. A big shout out to John, man.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm impressed, man. For you to sit there that long and watch us two bozos bang on about audio for that long, I don't know whether you should get a pat on the back or you should be booked in to see me as a psychologist.
Yeah, there must have been not enough good stuff on his late night television show. Shane, you were about to make a comment, and then maybe you can wrap that up and tell everybody about our next guest and about a little bit of the schedule change that's coming.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, folks, is, well, first of all, let's talk about our next guest. Now, our next guests, we're very excited because we're actually, we don't see these guys turning up on video very often. They are two absolute, they are dedicated to what they do. And that is Rob and Rich from Network Acoustics. Now, I've been reviewing some of their products, and you have got something which I can't talk about yet. You will when you're ready to share it.
Something arrived at my doorstep on Friday, which was yesterday. So
hot off the press. So only a couple of days ago did you get that, or Saturday for you, Sunday for me. But we're going to talk to Rob and Rich about all things digital streaming.
Yeah.
So this is we've done quite a bit on the analog side of things on the show so far. This time we're going to dip into some digital stuff, and we're going to talk about what those guys are doing and what's happening in that regard. So we're talking about things like power supplies, like switches, like Ethernet filters. We're going to talk about what got these guys into this. This show is all about, when we have guests on, we want to dig deep. We want to get down to why these people got into this industry, because most of them, like us, did this for love, not for making money. Because there's only a few really of the big companies that actually make a lot of money out of this. Most of these guys are doing this because they are just so caught up in the love of music that when they come up with it, and they're very clever people, and they come up with an invention, They want to get it out there, and they want to, they really want to share what they've learned and what they've developed with the rest of their community, which is all of us. So Rob and Rich will be on. Now, that leads us into the next part of what's going on. Now, this bloke over here has got a fair bit going on. I pointed in the right direction too.
You did this time. This is good. I still are backwards.
So I won't give too much away other than to say that Louie is very, very, very busy behind the scenes with some big stuff that's going on, and he'll share that with you as he goes through that process.
Well, I can share it now. I mean, I'm in the middle of a move. We're moving. We're relocating our house and our family, and we're in the midst of packing up our place. This is the last room that's being packed up. That's why it's still put together, but every other room in this house is pretty much half in boxes, if not all the way in boxes. So yeah, so I'm in transition, and I have a lot of traveling coming up for work because we're still at the tail end of conference season. And I've been in technology for 25 years, as I mentioned earlier in the show. So yeah, we're still doing conferences. So I still have a lot more traveling to do. So I'm battling traveling and being home to be able to get things packed up, and meanwhile still trying to run this channel. So that has put a little bit of a kink in my availability, if you will. So Shane, what does that mean?
Well, so that means what we're going to do is from now on in until into December and for the rest of the year, we're going to try and do one of these shows every 3 weeks as opposed to every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
It's around, look, I've got a fair bit going on behind the scenes as well, but Louie's moving house, and I didn't want to say anything without Louie's permission to do so, and I hadn't asked about that before I did it. So Louie's told you exactly what's going on, and I have some stuff going on with internship around my other career. And so there's a lot going on for both of us behind the scenes and away from the channel. And so we're going to try and get one of these out every 3 weeks. And in 3 weeks from now, so that date is, I think can you remember that date?
Oh, I think it's it's October 12th is when we're going to have Network Acoustics come on.
Yep. So and then we're going to do then we're probably going to do another one of these sort of situations where we might talk about the analog side of things. So again, keep putting your questions in if you want us to talk about things like that. And then we're going to do which we can talk about, we'll preempt it now, about somewhere around the middle of December, we're going to do a stocking stuffer Christmas special.
Yes.
We're going to put our Santa hats on. We're all going to be on the eggnog. We're going to be half drunk or whatever we're going to be, but we're going to be in that. We're going to be in that
celebration with the community. Yeah. And Charles asked about what's on our Christmas list, and I purposely skipped over that question because I knew we were going to be doing that show later on about what's on our Christmas list. So that's one topic we're going to be talking about is what's on top of our Christmas list. What are the things that we really thought were impressive this year that we had a chance to experience and do a review? And we'd love to hear from y'all as well as what's the things that you're really excited for.
Comment below.
All about the comments. Yep.
Yeah, so comment below. Do what you guys just did on this show. We love you like there's no tomorrow for all of your love back to us. We are humbled by all of you and by your continued belief in us, and we will not let you down. We really want to get this whole thing moving in the right direction, which we already are doing. We want to bring you guys along with it. So for goodness sake, please comment below. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us if there's a guest you want to get. We've got some other crazy good guests coming up, probably into the new year now. Where we're going to be talking to big heavyweight people in the industry about their products and about what they're doing. And there's quite a few of them we've already got lined up, and some more that we're in the process of getting lined up.
We got some big names that we're working on.
We do have some big names, and they're all starting to pay attention to us. So what we want to do is we want to push that further out, so you guys have got something to watch on a weekend when we do these live shows. So I mean, from the bottom of my heart, thanks for putting up with us for 2.5 hours here. This has been awesome as per usual. Very little of this is scripted, if any of it. It is literally a live show. We've got a few questions that, we put together here, but this is just Louie and me going.
It's been an absolute pleasure to spend the evening with everyone. Thank you so much for dialing in, as Shane mentioned, and thank you for being part of the community. Because again, as Shane and I think both mentioned in our comments of why we started YouTube, is because of y'all. I don't think Shane or I would
Absolutely.
be here if it wasn't for your connection, your friendship, your support. We wouldn't be here. We would be doing him and I would probably still talk, but we wouldn't be creating the stuff for the channel.
Maybe.
Maybe I don't know. Who are you? I'm confused. The one thing I will say is that we'll do the every 3 weeks until the end of the year. But then once the new year breaks, we plan on going back to the fortnight, because by then things will be settled, I think, for both Shane and I,
Yeah.
and we can get back on a normal schedule. So we appreciate your understanding in the circumstances that we have. We thank everyone for tuning in here. And I got to ask, I don't know if we're going to get it, John, but I don't know if John made it. I know it was 3:30 when he sent this last text. So I don't know if he made it to 3:40. But John, hopefully you get some good sleep. And thank you all for leaving great comments here. From Charles, we got Adrian also said it was a great show. We have the Masher saying it was a great show. So a lot of folks chiming in here saying we had a great program. Shane, final words before we sign off?
It's as per usual, mate. We love doing these things. We really love having you guys come along to them. There's a lot of really honest opinion gets said on this live stream. We're shooting absolutely from our hearts, and we love having you shoot back to us through your hearts, by giving us the questions you want answered, by showing us that you appreciate what we're doing here. And John's made it. Well, I mean, I'm impressed with that man. He's absolutely done brilliantly well. So, yeah, look, thanks everybody very much for being part of this with us, and we will definitely be seeing you in 3 weeks with the folks from Network Acoustics.
Yeah, I look forward to it. And I think the time's going to change slightly, right? Just to make sure that it's a good time.
We'll let you know.
But we'll announce that as we get a little bit closer. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.